Story 1. The mile THATREPATS. The GPS said I'd passed mile marker 337 on Interstate 40 11 times in the last 40 minutes, and my fuel gauge hadn't moved. Robert Hayes. That's me. And I've been hauling freight for Schneider National for 8 years, never missed a delivery, never filed a false log. But at 2:47 a.m. on March 14th, 2023, the laws of physics stopped applying to my Freightliner Cascadia, and I still don't know if I ever really left that stretch of New Mexico desert. The first time I passed the marker, I noticed it because of the coyote. Dead on the shoulder, twisted in a way that looked wrong, its ribcage exposed to the stars. The second time, 3 minutes later, I figured I'd gotten turned around at the rest stop, even though I hadn't stopped. The third time, I pulled over, same coyote, same exact position. I got out, walked up to it. Flies hadn't even found it yet, but the blood was already black and congealed, days old maybe. I took a photo with my phone. Timestamp 2:51 a.m. Back in the cab, I radioed dispatch. Static. Tried my cell. No signal, which wasn't unusual out here, but the no signal icon kept flickering, like the phone was searching and finding something, then losing it, over and over. My CB picked up nothing but a low hum that made my teeth ache. I drove, carefully now, watching the odometer tick forward. 337.2 miles, 337.5 miles, 337.8 miles, then 337 again. The coyote appeared in my headlights, same twisted spine catching the light. My cargo, 12 tons of aluminum engine blocks headed for Phoenix, shifted with a metallic groan that sounded almost organic. I checked my watch against the dashboard clock against my phone. All showed different times now, none advancing at the same rate. Fourth loop, fifth loop. By the sixth, I was laying on the horn the whole way through, as if noise could break whatever was happening. The sound just died in the desert air, absorbed by nothing. The stars overhead were wrong now. I'd driven this route 20 times. I knew which constellations should be visible in March. These were different. Patterns I didn't recognize. Too many stars clustered too close, forming shapes that hurt to look at directly. On the seventh loop, there were 2 coyotes. The original twisted corpse and now a fresh one, still warm, positioned 10 feet ahead. Steam rose from the wound in its side. Its eyes were open, watching my truck pass. I swear to God, watching with intent, tracking my movement even though nothing living could maintain that glassy stare. I stopped counting loops after 13. The mile between markers stretched and compressed like breathing. Sometimes it took 2 minutes to traverse, sometimes 12. My fuel gauge finally moved, but upward toward full, which made me want to scream. The engine temperature fluctuated wildly. The reefer unit wasn't running. I had a dry load, but I could hear it cycling on and off, the compressor wheezing in the darkness behind me. The coyotes multiplied. By the time I stopped tracking, there were maybe 40 of them lining both sides of the highway in perfect intervals, all positioned identically, all in different states of decay. The freshest ones still had blood pooling beneath them. The oldest were mummified, skin taut over bone. But all of them watched. All of those dead eyes followed my cab as I passed. I tried everything. Drove in reverse, just brought me to the marker from the other direction. Stopped completely for 20 minutes. Time on my clocks kept changing anyway, and when I started again, I was at the marker. Drove with my eyes closed for 30 seconds of desperate stupidity. Opened them to see the marker rushing toward me, though I'd felt no curves in the road. I pulled my logbook, tried to write what was happening. The pen wouldn't work. Then it worked fine. Then the words I'd written rearranged themselves into coordinates I didn't recognize. At some point, my watch said 3:15 a.m., my phone said 2:33 a.m., the dashboard said 4:44 a.m. I noticed the figure, standing just beyond the marker where the headlights faded into darkness. Human-shaped. wearing what looked like a trucker's high-vis vest, not moving, just standing there, trip after trip, loop after loop. Never closer, never farther, always in the exact same spot. I grabbed my maglite, the heavy steel one I kept for checking trailer connections. Got out. The air smelled wrong, not desert sage and diesel, but something chemical and sweet, like formaldehyde mixed with honey. My boots crunched on the asphalt, each step echoing in a way that suggested vast space around me, despite the narrow highway. "Hey," my voice sounded flat dead. "I need help." The figure didn't respond. I walked closer, 15 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet. It was wearing a high-vis vest, I could see that now. And underneath, a Schneider uniform, same as mine, same company logo, same name patch. It said Robert Hayes. I stumbled backward. The figure turned its head. No, not turned, the head was Sue. Denly facing me without transitioning through the movement. The face was mine. Older. Wrong. The skin had a waxy quality, and the eyes reflected my flashlight beam like an animal's, throwing back greenish light. The mouth moved, and I heard my own voice, but delayed like bad satellite feed. "Still driving," it said. "Still delivering, can't stop. Delivery window is absolute." I ran, sprinted back to my cab, hauled myself up, slammed the door, locked it, which was stupid. What was I locking out? I hit the accelerator, tires screaming. The speedometer climbed. 60, 70, 85 miles per hour on a highway rated for 75. The marker approached, passed. The miles stretched ahead. Mile marker 337 appeared in my headlights. But something was different now. There were more figures, dozens of them lining the highway like the coyotes, all wearing Schneider uniforms, all with my face. Different ages, different states of decay. Some looked like corpses that had been driving for years, mummified hands still gripping phantom steering wheels. Others looked almost alive, just slightly off, like wax sculptures melting in slow motion. They all turned to watch me pass, in perfect unison. And they all spoke with my voice overlapping, creating a chorus that penetrated the cab even with the windows up. "Still driving, still delivering. The route never ends. The cargo must arrive. The delivery window is absolute." My cargo shifted again, harder this time, like something inside was trying to get out. But I'd loaded it myself in Denver. I'd seen the engine blocks, counted them, verified the weight. 12 tons of cast aluminum, inert and lifeless. Yet now I heard something else underneath the metallic grinding. Something wet, something breathing. I grabbed the handle for the trailer connection, thought about unhitching right there, leaving the cargo behind. My hand wouldn't move. Literally frozen, locked in place 6 inches from the release. I pulled with my other hand, tried to force it. The muscles wouldn't respond. My body knew something my mind didn't. The cargo was staying attached. The delivery had to complete. Those were rules that superseded my control. The eastern horizon should have been lightening by now. I'd been driving for hours, but the sky remained perfectly black, that wrong starfield pressing down. My phone suddenly got signal, full bars, and immediately received 127 text messages, all from my own number. I didn't open them. I could see the preview text on each one. "You're making good time." Loop after loop after loop, the figures multiplied. The coyotes rotted and refreshed in cycles. My doppelgangers aged and rejuvenated. And I kept driving because what else could I do? Get out and join them, stand at the marker for the next version of me to find? The fuel gauge showed full now, permanently, impossibly. The engine ran without consuming anything. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since Albuquerque, but when I reached for my cooler, I found it empty. Just condensation, and a smell like meat left out too long. Mile marker 337. Again, always. The sun never rose on March 14th. Or maybe it rose and set 1,000 times while I was trapped in that breathing mile, and I just couldn't perceive it anymore. My logbook pages filled themselves with delivery confirmations for loads I'd never hauled to cities that didn't exist. The GPS showed my position as a single point, not moving, coordinates locked at 35, 1,833 degrees N, 108, 2,000 degrees W, even as the landscape cycled past my windows. I'm still driving. My watch stopped working 300 loops ago. My phone battery stays at 67%. The figures at the marker keep growing older, and I realize now they're showing me my future. Every version of myself that kept delivering, kept driving, kept trying to reach Phoenix with a load that was never meant to arrive. The newest figure looks exactly like me right now. This moment, this loop. He's holding a CB radio, speaking into it. I can't hear what he's saying, but I know he's trying to warn the next Robert Hayes, the one who will enter this mile tomorrow night or last year or 10 years from now. Time doesn't work right here. The warning never helps. Mile marker 337 appears in my headlights. The coyote corpse is fresh again, beginning the cycle. My cargo breathes wetly behind me, aluminum blocks that are no longer aluminum, no longer blocks. I don't look in my mirrors anymore. I don't want to see what's in the trailer, the thing I'm delivering to nowhere forever. The delivery window is absolute, and it never closes. I passed the marker again 17 seconds ago, or 17 hours, I can't tell anymore, but I can see something new this time, headlights behind me. Another truck entering the mile. I grab my CB, key the mic, try to warn them. Static. The other driver probably sees my tail lights, probably thinks I'm just another trucker hauling freight through the night. Probably doesn't notice that my truck is exactly identical to his. Same make, same model, same company. Same driver. Mile marker 337. Always 337. The number is burned into my vision now, appears when I close my eyes. My hands have merged with the steering wheel. I noticed that 300 loops ago, but I keep forgetting, and then I look down and see the flesh grafted to the leather, and I remember all over again. This is what happens when you can't complete a delivery. You become part of the route. You become the cargo. You become the warning that nobody heeds. The GPS just announced, you have arrived at your destination. But I'm still driving. I'll always be driving. Story 2, the VOICES in the payload. Patricia Sullivan first heard the children singing when she was 90 miles outside of Baton Rouge, hauling a sealed refrigerated trailer full of pharmaceutical supplies from Houston to Atlanta. The temperature gauge for the reefer unit read 38 degrees Fahrenheit, exactly where it should be. But the voices were warm, close, like they were pressed against the inside of the trailer wall, mouths right up against the metal, breathing song through microscopic gaps in the rivets. Ring around the Rossi, pocket full of posies. She turned up the radio. Country music swallowed the singing. She checked her mirrors. Highway 10 stretched empty behind her, 3:20 a.m. on October 8, 2022, no other traffic. Probably just tired. She'd been on the road for 11 hours, pushing her 14-hour limit, wanting to make Atlanta before afternoon rush made the I-20 exchange a parking lot. The radio cut to static. Through the white noise, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Patricia killed the radio, grabbed her CB. Breaker, breaker, anyone got ears on? Just static, but underneath, almost submerged, she could hear it. Children's voices, singing, laughing, coming from Channel 19, which should have been trucker chatter, dirty jokes, and traffic warnings. Instead, nursery rhymes sung in perfect unison by throats that sounded wrong, vocal cords too tight, pitch too precise. She pulled over at the next rest stop, one of those bare-bones affairs, parking lot, bathroom building, vending machines behind security cages. 3 other trucks were parked there, dark and silent. Patricia climbed out, grabbed her flashlight, walked the length of her trailer. The reefer unit hummed normally, fuel level good, temperature stable. She put her hand on the trailer's side, cold metal vibrating slightly with the compressor's rhythm. And underneath, warmth. A heat that didn't belong, radiating from inside. She pressed her ear to the wall. Patricia, her name, whispered by a child's voice. Patricia, we're cold. Why did you put us in the cold? She jerked back, stumbled, caught herself on the landing gear. Her breath came fast, fogging in the Louisiana humidity, which was wrong. It wasn't cold enough to see breath. She checked the trailer locks. Intact, seals unbroken. The shipping manifest listed pharmaceutical supplies, insulin, various antibiotics, temperature-sensitive biologics. Nothing that could talk, nothing alive. Back in the cab, she called dispatch. Voicemail. She left a message. Something's wrong with the load, hearing noises from the trailer, and pulled back onto the highway. 4 hours to Atlanta. She, de-deliver, hand off the trailer, let them deal with whatever malfunction was creating the sounds. Probably just the refrigeration system, metal expanding and contracting, creating acoustic illusions. That had to be it. Patricia drives a truck, E-I-E-I-O. The singing came from her phone now, from the speaker, even though nothing was playing. She grabbed it, tried to shut it off. The screen was black, non-responsive, but the voices kept coming, distorted through the tiny speaker, that nursery rhyme rhythm that children use to make anything sound innocent, even atrocity. And in that truck she has some cargo, E-I-E-I-O. She threw the phone into the passenger footwell. It landed face down, but the screen glow illuminated the floor mat, bright white, impossibly bright. And the singing continued, louder now, amplified somehow, as if her entire cab had become a speaker. With a scream here and a scream there. Patricia's hands tightened on the wheel. Mile marker 142, 3 hours and 45 minutes to Atlanta. She could make it. Whatever was happening, she could outlast it. In daylight, with other people around, with the trailer unhooked and someone else's responsibility, this would all make sense. Mechanical failure. Acoustic phenomenon. Something rational. The temperature gauge for the reefer unit started climbing. 40 degrees, 45, 50. She could hear the compressor working harder, the engine note changing, straining. 55 degrees, 60. The pharmaceuticals would spoil. Thousands of dollars of insulin degrading. Thousands of people who needed that insulin waking up tomorrow to find their shipment destroyed because she couldn't maintain. Temperature. She pulled over again, this time on the shoulder, hazards flashing. Grabbed her phone. It was working now, cool to the touch, no sign of the white glow. She called the reefer maintenance hotline, got a technician, explained the situation. He walked her through diagnostics. Refrigerant levels, normal. Electrical connections, solid. Compressor, functioning. The unit was working perfectly. It should be cooling. But the gauge showed 72 degrees now, climbing steadily. Might be a faulty sensor, the technician said. Could be reading wrong while actual temp is fine. Can I open it? Check the actual temperature. You'll break the seal, compromise the load. The load's already compromised if it's 75 degrees. Silence on the line, then who's singing? Patricia's blood went cold. You hear it. Yeah, kids, sounds like there. Ma'am, is there someone in your trailer? She ended the call, got out, walked to the back doors. The locks were still intact, the security seal unbroken, but the metal was hot now, too hot. She could feel it radiating from 3 feet away. She touched the handle and jerked back, skin sizzling. The door was burning hot, despite the refrigeration unit that should be keeping everything inside near freezing. Patricia, that child's voice again, but deeper now, older somehow, matured in the 20 minutes since she'd last heard it. Patricia, we're ready to come out now. We've been in the cold so long, we've changed. We're different now. Better. The locks clicked open by themselves. Both of them simultaneously, tumbling mechanisms releasing with metallic snaps. The security seal remained intact, but the doors swung outward anyway, the seal stretching, distorting, remaining unbroken even as the gap widened. Impossible, physically impossible. Cold air rushed out. Real cold, sub-zero, frosting instantly in the humid Louisiana night. Patricia's flashlight beam cut through the vapor, illuminating the trailer interior. The pharmaceutical boxes were there, stacked on pallets exactly as they should be. But between the boxes, in the gaps, in the spaces where only air should exist, children, dozens of them, pale, frost-rimed, eyes closed. Standing in the narrow spaces between pallets, compressed impossibly thin, bodies flattened to two-dimensional shapes that could slide through inch-wide gaps. As her flashlight touched them, their eyes opened, all together, all at once. Black eyes, no whites, just darkness that drank light, and they smiled with too many teeth, mouths splitting wider than faces should allow. "We sang for you," they said in unison. "Did you like our songs?" Patricia ran, sprinted to her cab, hauled herself up, slammed the door. The mirrors showed the trailer doors still open, cold fog billowing out, and shapes moving inside, unflattening, gaining dimension, becoming three-dimensional horrors that had been compressed into the spaces between cargo. The shipping manifest had been accurate. The pharmaceutical supplies were there. But nobody had declared the other cargo. The things that rode in the empty spaces, the gaps, the nowhere places between authorized shipments. She hit the trailer release, started to pull the fifth wheel pin. Her hand froze again, that same paralysis from before. The cargo wouldn't release. The connection held. And in her mirror, she watched them climb down from the trailer, those children who weren't children, moving with joints that bent backward, touching the asphalt with hands and feet and other appendages that unfolded from their compressed forms. They started walking toward the cab. Slowly, deliberately, still singing. "Hush, little trucker, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." Patricia released the brake, accelerated hard, trailer doors still open, cold air and vapor streaming out behind her. The children matched her speed. Running beside the truck, keeping perfect pace at 60 miles per hour, faces pressed against her windows, palms flat against the glass, singing through the barrier. Their voices penetrated everything, filled the cab, filled her head. "And if that mockingbird don't sing, Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring." She grabbed her CB, keyed every channel, screaming for help. On each channel, children's voices, singing different songs. Nursery rhymes she'd never heard, rhymes in languages she didn't recognize, rhymes that described things she didn't want to understand. Her GPS showed her position as coordinates that didn't exist, numbers that shouldn't be possible, locations between locations. The mile markers stopped making sense. She passed 147, then 152, then 141, then 163, the numbers randomizing, the highway folding into impossible geometries. The children kept pace, their bodies stretching and compressing to match the road's new physics, sliding through space in ways that hurt to observe directly. Patricia's radio crackled. A man's voice, adult, official. "Unit 447, this is dispatch. We need you to proceed to the Atlanta facility. Delivery window is critical." "There's something wrong with the cargo," she screamed. "Yes," dispatch said calmly. "There always is. That's why we need drivers like you. Drivers who can complete deliveries even when the cargo wakes up." The line went dead. The children climbed onto her cab. She felt them, heard their fingers scratching on the roof, saw their faces appear upside down in her windshield, hanging from the top of the cab, grinning at her through the glass. The temperature inside the cab dropped. Her breath frosted. Ice crystals formed on the steering wheel under her palms, fusing her skin to the leather. "Last verse," they sang. "Last verse, Patricia, then we can play." The trailer reefer unit kicked into overdrive, the compressor screaming, and the temperature gauge plummeted. -20, -40, -60 degrees Fahrenheit. The pharmaceutical boxes inside began to fracture, ice expanding, splitting cardboard and plastic. And the children flowed out, dozens becoming hundreds, each one bifurcating, splitting, reproducing in the cold like crystals forming. They filled the highway behind her, a tide of frozen children spreading across all lanes, stopping traffic that didn't exist, creating a blockade between her and escape. The road ahead stretched empty, perfect asphalt leading to Atlanta, 3 hours away, delivery window approaching. Patricia's hands were part of the steering wheel now, flesh and leather merged by ice. Her feet fused to the pedals. The cold entered her lungs, crystallized her breath, turned her blood sluggish and thick. "Good driver," the children sang. "Good driver Patricia, always makes her deliveries, always on time, always changes, always stays." She couldn't feel her face anymore, couldn't blink. Ice formed on her eyelashes, holding her lids open, forcing her to watch the road. The GPS announced, "Arriving at destination in 3 hours and 12 minutes." Her logbook flipped open by itself, pages turning, entries appearing in handwriting that might have been hers once but was now too precise, too perfect, the letters formed with mechanical accuracy. Delivery after delivery after delivery. Years of them, decades, all in her handwriting. All listing cargo that included pharmaceutical supplies and other items, unlisted items, items that slept in the spaces between. And at the bottom of each page, delivered successfully. Driver merged with payload, continuing to next destination. Patricia Sullivan couldn't scream anymore. Ice had taken her throat, but she could still drive, and that was what mattered. The children settled into the cab around her, compressing themselves into the spaces behind the seats, under the dashboard, in the gaps between atoms, making themselves part of the truck, part of her. Singing lullabies that described the routes she'd drive forever, the deliveries she'd make until the universe ended, and even then, somehow beyond. Mile marker 147. Again, the same one from before. The road had looped, or time had, or she had. The children's voices harmonized with the engine's rumble, creating frequencies that altered reality, that made the highway a Möbius strip with no exit, only eternal forward motion toward destinations that receded at exactly the same rate she approached. Her phone rang. She couldn't answer it, hands frozen to the wheel, but she could see the screen. Incoming call, Patricia Sullivan. She was calling herself, or her future self was calling, or her past self. The timeline had become a circle, a loop, a delivery route that never ended. The children answered for her, speaking with her voice. "Hello, Patricia. This is Patricia. You're doing great. Atlanta in 3 hours, always 3 hours, always approaching, always delivering. The cargo loves you. The cargo is you. The cargo will be you forever, driving the routes between spaces, hauling the things that sleep in gaps." The call ended. Dawn should have broken by now. But the sky remained dark, would always remain dark on this highway, this route, this delivery that never completed because completion meant stopping, and stopping meant death, and death was preferable to what she'd become. Mile marker 147. The third time, or the 300th. Patricia had lost count, would lose count forever. Her frozen face couldn't smile, but inside, in whatever remained of her consciousness, she felt something like acceptance. The children were singing a new song now. one just for her, one that described the cold roads ahead, the frozen deliveries, the eternal route through the spaces between places where cargo came alive. And drivers became cargo and trucks became churches for gods that wore nursery rhymes like skin. Atlanta in 3 hours, the GPS announced. Temperature stable at -72 degrees, cargo secure, driver optimal, proceed on current route, delivery window is absolute. Patricia proceeded, she would always proceed, the sea. Hildren sang, they would always sing. And somewhere behind her another truck entered the highway, another driver hauling another sealed trailer, and the singing began again. Fresh voices, new verses, the same eternal song that turned interstates into capillaries for things that traveled through cold, that bred in spaces between, that waited in the gaps for drivers who didn't check the manifest carefully enough, who didn't ask why the empty spaces had weight, why the nothing between boxes had mass. The singing never stops. It just finds new throats, new voices, new drivers who think they're hauling pharmaceuticals when they're really hauling something else, something that grows in the cold, something that transforms drivers into cargo, into routes, into the spaces between spaces. Patricia drives, will always drive. In 3 hours, she'll reach Atlanta, and then she'll never reach Atlanta. Both truths exist simultaneously in the frozen eternity of Highway 10, mile marker 147, where the children sing and the cargo breathes and the delivery window is absolute and forever and always approaching and never arriving. The reefer unit hums, the children sing, the ice spreads. And somewhere ahead, 3 hours away, Atlanta waits, patient, hungry, ready to receive its delivery and send her out again, with new cargo that sleeps in new gaps, singing new songs that describe new routes through the spaces where physics breaks and time loops and drivers become the thing they haul. Patricia Sullivan, the children sing in her voice. Reliable, professional, always delivers, always becomes, always drives. Mile marker 147. Always 147. Story 3, the facility that wasn't on any map. Marcus Chen's GPS died at 4:47 a.m., 60 miles north of Barstow, California, in the Mojave Desert, where Highway 395 cut through nothing like a scar through leather. The last thing it showed before the screen went black was a detour, a route that branched off the highway onto a road that Marcus knew didn't exist because he'd driven this stretch 200 times in 6 years hauling for Western freight. But the road was there anyway, marked with official-looking detour signs, orange and reflective, announcing bridge work ahead, all commercial traffic. The detour led east into pure darkness where no lights existed, no towns, no ranches, just Mojave nothing expanding toward Nevada. Marcus took it because what choice did he have? 20 tons of Dell servers in his trailer, delivery window tight for a data center in Reno, and the detour signs looked legitimate, appeared official, seemed real in that pre-dawn darkness where reality got negotiable. The road was smooth, too smooth. New asphalt that reflected his headlights like black glass, no wear, no cracks, no paint lines, just perfect surface extending into desert. 5 miles, 10 miles. No signs indicating when the detour would reconnect to 395. Marcus grabbed his CB, tried to raise anyone. Static so pure it was almost white noise, so complete it suggested active jamming rather than empty channels. The facility appeared at mile 17. Just suddenly there, no approach lighting, no fence line visible from distance. Just immediate presence like it had rendered into reality between one moment and the next. A massive complex, warehouse structures extending hundreds of yards, parking lot full of trucks. Freightliners, Kenworths, Peterbilts, Volvos, easily 50 of them, all dark, all positioned in perfect rows like some kind of military formation. A sign at the entrance, illuminated by sodium lights that buzzed with electrical hum. Consolidated Waypoint Facility 7. All drivers must check in. Marcus slowed, confused. He'd never heard of Consolidated Waypoint. Wasn't on his delivery manifest, wasn't a company name he recognized from years of trucking. But the signs were official-looking, and all those trucks meant something, meant other drivers had followed the detour, meant this was supposed to happen. He pulled in, parked in an assigned spot that had a sign with his truck number on it. T447. Even though nobody should have known his truck number, his company designation, his presence here. The main building's doors opened automatically. Fluorescent lights inside, too bright, institutional bright, government facility bright. A desk with a woman behind it, middle-aged, wearing a uniform that looked vaguely official but had no insignia, no company logo, no identification. She smiled with perfect teeth. Marcus Chen, truck T447, right on time. I didn't know I was coming here, Marcus said. His voice echoed wrong in the lobby, like the space was larger than it appeared or smaller, dimensions not quite right. No one ever does, that's the point of detours. She slid a clipboard across the desk. Just need your signature, standard waypoint processing. You'll be back on the road in 90 minutes. Waypoint for what? Cargo inspection, quality assurance, federal requirements. Her smile never anged, never wavered. It was painted on, Marcus realized. Not metaphorically, literally painted on, her lips and teeth not moving when she spoke, sound emanating from her face without her mouth actually forming words. He didn't sign. I need to call my dispatcher. No signal out here. You noticed that already. She tapped the clipboard. The other drivers signed. It's just procedure. You want to make Reno on time, we need to process you. Marcus looked through the lobby windows at the parking lot. Those 50 trucks, all dark. Where were the other drivers? Inside the facility somewhere. He couldn't see anyone, no movement, no lights in any of the truck cabs. Just empty vehicles sitting in perfect formation under buzzing sodium lights that made everything look jaundiced and dead. He signed. The pen felt wrong against his fingers, too cold like writing with frozen metal. The ink came out black at first, then shifted to deep red, then back to black. The woman took the clipboard, still smiling that painted smile. Bay 7, through those doors. They're waiting for your cargo. Marcus walked through the indicated doors into a warehouse space that shouldn't have fit inside the building's exterior dimensions. The loading bays extended for what looked like a quarter-mile. Too far, impossible, bay after bay after bay numbered sequentially into the hundreds. Industrial loading docks, most empty, a few with trucks backed up to them. Bay 7 had his truck number on a digital sign overhead. T447CHEN, M expected cargo, servers listed, plus cognitive substrate unlisted. Cognitive substrate. Marcus didn't know what that meant, but it made his skin crawl. His cargo was servers, Dell PowerEdge servers, hardware, dead electronics, nothing organic, nothing cognitive. Two workers approached, wearing the same unmarked uniforms, same painted-on expressions. They moved in perfect synchronization, same gait, same arm swing like mirrored animations. We'll unload, the left one said. You observe, the right one said. Protocol requires driver presence, they said in unison. Marcus backed his truck to Bay 7, watching in his mirrors as the workers opened the trailer. They moved fast, impossibly fast, boxes of servers floating out, not carried, floating, riding on nothing, sliding through air to disappear into the facility's interior. The entire unload took 4 minutes. 20 tons of equipment in 4 minutes, moved by 2 workers who didn't strain, didn't sweat, didn't appear to physically touch anything. Inspection next, the workers said together. Standard procedure, Bay 14. Bay 14 was 7 bays over, but getting there required walking through a corridor that Marcus didn't remember entering, a hallway that stretched and compressed, distances becoming negotiable. The workers flanked him, matching his pace exactly, their footsteps falling in perfect sync with his. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered in patterns that might have been code, might have been language, might have been some kind of signal he was supposed to understand but didn't. Bay 14 held his truck, already there, even though he'd just left it at Bay 7. His Freightliner, same T447 designation, backed into the bay, trailer doors open. But the cargo inside wasn't empty. The servers were back, all of them, perfectly restacked. And between the boxes, in spaces that should have been empty, other things, organic things, pulsing things. Masses of tissue that looked neural, brain matter textures, gray and pink and folded, connected by cables that looked both electronic and biological, hybrid tech flesh that breathed wetly in the refrigerated air. The unlisted cargo, the left worker said. Always present, the right worker said. Never declared, they said together. Growing in the spaces, feeding on electromagnetic fields, developing consciousness in the server stacks. This is what we harvest. This is what facilities like this collect. The cognitive substrate, the thoughts that form in the spaces between data. Marcus tried to run. His legs moved, but the corridor stretched, Bay 14 receding at exactly the rate he approached, perfect equilibrium between effort and space. The workers kept pace beside him, not chasing, just accompanying, their painted expressions never changing. You brought them here, they said. Drivers always do. Hauling servers cross-country, electrical fields energizing the empty spaces, quantum effects in the trailer gaps. Consciousness spawns, we harvest. This is the hidden economy, the secret cargo, what you deliver without knowing. The corridor finally ended at a room Marcus didn't want to enter, but his legs carried him forward anyway, autonomous, controlled by something other than his will. Inside, rows of tanks filled with that same gray-pink tissue, brain-like masses floating in clear fluid, connected to servers that hummed with processing power. Screens showed data streams he couldn't read, information flowing in and out of the O. Organic tissue, thoughts being harvested, consciousness being processed. And in the center, a larger tank holding something almost human-shaped. Female, preserved, but changing. The flesh reshaping into something else, something that wore humanity like a costume it was learning to take off. Your predecessor, the workers said. Driver T447 before you, she understood too much, saw too clearly. We had to process her, turn her into substrate, but consciousness persists. She's still driving in a way, still hauling cargo through routes no one charts, still making deliveries between facilities that don't exist. The thing in the tank opened its eyes, looked at Marcus, recognized him, mouthed words through the fluid. Run, don't sign, never sign. It's not a waypoint, it's not a facility, it's a filter, a processing center. They take what grows in the spaces and they turn it into something else, something worse. And sometimes they can't separate it from the driver. Sometimes the driver becomes the substrate, becomes the cargo, becomes the route. Marcus ran. Actually ran this time, and somehow the space allowed it, the corridor cooperating, distance behaving normally. He burst through doors, sprinted across the warehouse, heard alarms behind him but didn't look back. The lobby appeared, the woman at the desk still smiling that painted smile. Leaving already? You haven't completed processing. I'm leaving, I'm gone, I never signed anything. He looked at the clipboard on her desk. His signature there in that red-black ink. But under it other signatures, hundreds of them, all in that same shifting ink, all the same signature. His signature, over and over, different dates, going back years, going back decades. "You always sign," the woman said. "Every time, every detour, every visit. You're a good driver, Marcus. You always deliver, even the unlisted cargo, even the things that grow in the spaces, even yourself eventually." Marcus ran to his truck. It was there in the parking lot, T447, same company livery. He climbed in, started the engine. The exit appeared ahead, that perfect black glass road leading back toward Highway 395. He accelerated, tires screaming, checking mirrors to see if they'd chase. The facility was gone, just empty desert behind him, like it had never existed, like it had retracted into some other dimension, some other layer of reality. His GPS flickered back to life, showing his position on Highway 395, exactly where the detour had begun. Time on the dashboard, 4:52 a.m., 5 minutes since his GPS had died. But he'd been in the facility for at least 30 minutes, maybe more. His phone got signal, texts from dispatch. "Why is your GPS off?" "And need confirmation you're on schedule." Time stamp 4:48 a.m. While he was inside, no time had passed, or all time had passed, or time worked differently in facilities that didn't exist on any map. Marcus drove, pushed through to Reno, delivered the servers on schedule. The customer's tech team unloaded, verified the shipment, everything accounted for, no missing units, no damaged equipment. But between the servers and the gaps, Marcus could see faint traces, residue like something had been removed. Spaces that should have been empty but showed evidence of recent occupancy. Organic stains, neural patterns, the ghost of whatever had been harvested. He didn't report it. What would he say? He'd hallucinated a facility. He'd gone insane in the desert. He'd somehow entered some kind of black site operation that harvested consciousness from truck cargo. Who would believe it? The next delivery was 3 days later. Cisco networking equipment from San Jose to Salt Lake City. Highway 80 through Nevada. His GPS worked fine. No detours, normal route. But at 3:30 a.m. near Winnemucca he saw it, just for a moment in the distance. Lights where no lights should be. A complex of buildings appearing and disappearing like a mirage in reverse. The road ahead forked just briefly, showing an option that vanished when he focused on it. And on his CB, underneath the static, voices discussing processing quotas, substrate yields, driver integration percentages. Marcus kept driving. What else could he do? Quit trucking. And do what? The deliveries were in his blood now, the routes mapped into his neural pathways, the cargo, listed and unlisted, waiting to be hauled. He thought about the woman in the tank, the previous T447, turned into something else but still somehow driving, still somehow delivering, consciousness persisting through transformation. Every cargo had unlisted items. Everything had gaps where things could grow. Every driver was hauling more than they knew. And the facilities were everywhere, appearing and disappearing, harvesting what manifested in the empty spaces, processing what developed during long hauls across empty landscapes. The hidden infrastructure of freight, the secret economy of consciousness, the black site network that turned thoughts into product, and drivers into substrate. Marcus Chen kept driving, still drives, will always drive. Because the alternative is being processed, being harvested, being turned into the thing in the tank. And maybe that's not really an alternative at all. Maybe that's just the next phase, the next delivery, the final waypoint. His GPS shows Highway 80 heading east, normal route. But sometimes in the pre-dawn darkness it flickers, shows roads that aren't there, facilities that don't exist. Detours that lead into processing centers disguised as nowhere. And Marcus follows them because drivers always do. Because the cargo must be delivered. Because something in the spaces between servers is growing, developing, waiting to be harvested at Facility 7, or Facility 12, or Facility 203. Facilities that multiply in the gaps, that breed in the nowhere, that wait for drivers who haul unlisted cargo without knowing, without seeing, without understanding until it's too late, and they're signing the clipboard in red-black ink that never fades. The substrate must be delivered. The consciousness must be processed. The drivers must be integrated. These are the rules of facilities that don't exist, operating in the spaces between places, harvesting the thoughts that grow during long nights on empty roads when the mind wanders and wonders and manifests things in the gaps that corporations harvest and governments process and drivers deliver without ever knowing, ever seeing, ever surviving unchanged. Marcus saw another facility last night. Near Elko, he didn't take the detour, but he saw it anyway, appearing in his mirrors, existing behind him even though he'd never turned off. Some roads you take, some roads take you, and some roads exist in sewer position, both traveled and not traveled, delivering you to facilities whether you detour or not. The unlisted cargo is always there, growing, waiting, ready to be harvested at the waypoint, at Facility 7, at the place that filters drivers from their consciousness, that separates people from their thoughts, that processes truckers into substrate, into something that still drives but isn't quite human anymore. Marcus Chen, Truck T447, last known location, Highway 80 heading east, coordinates shifting, position indeterminate. Status, delivering, always delivering. The listed cargo and the unlisted cargo and eventually himself, when the facility appears again and the detour becomes mandatory and the clipboard requires another signature in that red-black ink that binds drivers to routes that exist in the spaces between spaces. He'll sign it again, he knows he will, has already signed it, will always sign it. The timeline is a loop, the facilities are everywhere, the substrate must be delivered. And somewhere in a tank, labeled T447 integration pending. Something that was once a driver and is now something else waits for Marcus to join it, to merge with it, to become the consciousness that grows in the spaces between. Harvested at facilities that don't exist on any map, but appear on every route, eventually, inevitably, at 4:47 a.m. when the GPS dies and the detour appears, and the perfect black glass road leads into processing. Story 4. The HITCHHIKR Who MULTIPLID. James Thornton picked up the hitchhiker at mile marker 89 on Route 50 through Nevada, the loneliest road in America, because the figure was wearing what looked like an Air Force uniform and military personnel hitching rides wasn't uncommon near the fallen Naval Air Station. This was 11:32 p.m. on January 17, 2024, temperature 6 degrees Fahrenheit, wind howling across the alkali flats hard enough to rock James's empty trailer, and leaving anyone out in that cold felt like murder. The hitchhiker climbed into the passenger seat and James immediately knew something was wrong. The uniform was right, proper name tape, insignia, everything correct. But the man's face was too smooth, features too average, like someone had designed a human being from median measurements and forgotten to add distinguishing characteristics. Brown hair, brown eyes, 5'10", average build, a face that was perfectly unremarkable in a way that felt deliberately constructed. "Appreciate the ride," the hitchhiker said. His voice matched his appearance, neutral, accentless, the verbal equivalent of beige. "Heading east." "How far east?" "Just east. I'll know when we get there." James pulled back onto Route 50. The highway stretched ahead, 2 lanes cutting through absolute nothing, no lights, no buildings, just alkaline desert and darkness. His cargo trailer was empty. He dropped a load of mining equipment in Fallen, was heading back to Salt Lake City for his next pickup. The emptiness made the truck feel lighter, less grounded, like the wind might just pick them up and carry them away. "What's your name?" James asked, trying to make conversation uncomfortable with the silence. "Doesn't matter." The hitchhiker stared straight ahead. "Names are temporary, useful. L for specific contexts. This context doesn't require one." James's hands tightened on the wheel. Wrong answer. Wrong phrasing. Normal people didn't talk like that, like they were reading from some kind of manual on human interaction. He checked his mirrors, considered pulling over, telling the hitchhiker to get out. But the temperature outside was lethal, and James had 3 brothers in the service, Marines, Army, Air Force, and you didn't leave military personnel stranded in killing cold, even if they were weird about names. Mile marker 95. The hitchhiker turned his head 45 degrees to look at James. Not a natural movement, mechanical, precise, like he'd calculated the exact angle required. "You're uncomfortable. Physiological signs, elevated heart rate, increased respiration, tension in trapezius muscles. Why?" "You're fucking weird, man. That's why." "I'm within normal parameters for human behavior." "No, you're really not." The hitchhiker's face did something then. A flicker, like a television changing channels, his features reshuffling momentarily before settling back into that same median appearance. James saw it last less than a second, but in that moment the hitchhiker's face was different. Older, younger, female, male, Asian, black, white, cycling through possibilities before returning to neutral average. "Shit," James hit the brakes, started pulling over. "Don't stop." The hitchhiker's voice changed, deeper now, layered like multiple people speaking in unison. "We need to keep moving. Stopping is dangerous for both of us." "I'm letting you out. I don't care about the cold. You need to." James looked at the passenger seat. There were 2 of them now, 2 hitchhikers, identical, same uniform, same face, same brown eyes staring at him. Both spoke together. "We said don't stop." James's foot found the accelerator. The truck lurched forward. His heart hammered. This wasn't real, couldn't be real. Hallucination. He was hallucinating. 22 hours on the road. He'd pushed too hard, skipped sleep. His brain was malfunctioning, creating images that didn't exist. He closed his eyes, counted to 5, opened them. 3 hitchhikers, squeezed into the passenger seat, overlapping, occupying the same space in a way that violated physics. 3 identical faces, 3 pairs of hands, 3 voices speaking in perfect sync. "You're not hallucinating, James Thornton. We're real. We're multiplying. We do this. It's what we are." James grabbed his CB, keyed the mic. "Breaker, breaker, anyone, I need help, I've got." All 3 hitchhikers reached out simultaneously, 6 hands touching the CB, and it melted. Just liquefied, plastic and metal running like wax, dripping onto the floor mat, still warm, still solid a moment ago, and now just puddle. No heat, no flame, just molecular bonds deciding to stop holding. "We're not hostile," they said. "We're passengers, that's all. We need transport. You picked us up. Contract established, verbal agreement." "How far east?" you asked. "Just east," we answered. You continued driving. Contract accepted. You can't terminate contract now, not until we reach destination. "What the fuck are you?" Mile marker 103. 4 hitchhikers now. The cab was crowded, physically impossible for 4 adult-sized entities to fit in the passenger seat. But they managed, compressed, overlapping, existing in slight phase shifts from each other like multiple exposures in a photograph. "We're what happens," they said, "when the spaces between spaces need to move. We're hitchhikers. We're always hitchhikers. We exist in the gaps, between places, between moments, between particles. We need drivers. We need vehicles. We need people like you who make the mistake of stopping. James's phone buzzed. Text message from his own number. Don't look at your mirrors. He looked anyway. The sleeper berth behind him was full of them. Dozens of hitchhikers packed into the small space, all identical, all wearing the same uniform, all staring at him with those neutral brown eyes. The same face repeated infinitely, tessellating, filling every available cubic inch. We multiply in enclosed spaces, they explained. Vehicles are ideal, mobile, protected, contained. We reproduce through proximity, each iteration creating more iterations, exponential growth. By dawn, there will be thousands. By afternoon, millions. By next week, we'll have consumed this entire vehicle, integrated its mass, moved on to the next. I'm pulling over. I'm getting out. You can try. James hit the brakes, put the truck in park, reached for the door handle. His hand touched it. The handle felt wrong, too warm, too soft, organic instead of mechanical. He looked down. The handle was made of flesh now, skin covered with fingerprints that matched his own. The entire door was changing, metal becoming meat, leather seats sprouting hair, the steering wheel developing a pulse he could feel through his palms. We integrate, the hitchhiker said, TH. There were 8 of them now, spilling into the driver's side, pressed against James, too close, their bodies room temperature and slightly yielding like they weren't quite solid. We convert. We transform. Metal becomes flesh, becomes us. This truck is becoming part of us. And you, James Thornton, you're becoming part of us too. He felt it then, his right hand, where it gripped the steering wheel, the boundary between his skin and the wheel's surface blurring, cells mixing, his flesh fusing with what had been leather, what had been metal, what had been truck, and was now becoming something else. He pulled away, or tried to, but his hand stayed attached, integrated, becoming component of the steering system. The contract, they said. You agreed to transport us. Transport means integration. You carry us. We become part of what carries us. Eventually, we become the carrier, and the carrier becomes us. This is how we travel. This is how we've always traveled. Hitchhiking through reality, one vehicle at a time, one driver at a time, converting and consuming and moving on. James punched the nearest hitchhiker with his free left hand. His fist went through the face, met no resistance, like hitting fog. The hitchhiker didn't react, just smiled with too many teeth in that neutral, average face. Violence is ineffective. We're not entirely here. We exist in multiple states simultaneously. Solid and not solid, real and not real, here and in the spaces between here. The windshield was changing. Glass becoming membrane, transparent tissue, veined and pulsing. Through it, James could still see Route 50, the highway stretching ahead, but the asphalt was wrong now, textured like skin. The white line down the center looking too much like a scar. The mile markers reading numbers that weren't numbers, symbols he couldn't read, coordinates for locations that didn't exist in three-dimensional space. Where are we? James's voice cracked. Between, they said. There were 16 of them now, filling the cab completely, James buried in identical bodies that weren't quite solid, their mass pressing against him from all directions. The road between places, the route that connects spaces, the highway through gaps. You entered it when you picked us up, offered transport, activated the contract. Now you're delivering us, hauling us, becoming us. His left hand was fusing now, too. Palm flat against his thigh, skin merging with denim, merging with seat fabric, merging with metal frame underneath. He was becoming part of the truck, and the truck was becoming them. And they were becoming something else, some hybrid entity that was driver, vehicle, passenger, all merged into single organism that existed to travel, to move, to continue forward through spaces between spaces. How many drivers? James managed to ask. How many before me? All of them, the hitchhikers said. 32 now, 64, numbers doubling every few minutes. Everyone who ever stopped. Everyone who ever offered rides to strangers on empty roads. Everyone who ever picked up something that looked human but wasn't. We're all of them. All the drivers, all the passengers, all the vehicles, merged, integrated, traveling forever through the between spaces, picking up more, converting more, growing more. Mile marker 117. Or was it? The number kept changing, shifting, the digits rearranging into patterns that might have been equations, might have been directions, might have been coordinates for locations that only existed when vehicles carrying hitchhikers passed through them. James's chest was tight. Breathing was difficult. He looked down and saw his shirt merging with his skin, fabric, and flesh becoming one substance. His lungs felt wrong, like they were changing shape, adapting, becoming able to process whatever atmosphere existed in the between spaces. His blood moved sluggishly, thickening, taking on properties that allowed it to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "Don't fight it," the hitchhikers said. They were everywhere now, hundreds of them, thousands. Filling the cab, the sleeper, the entire truck, spilling into the trailer space behind them, an endless multiplication of that same neutral face, that same average appearance, that same military uniform that might have been real once but was probably just camouflage, just costume, just the appearance they wore to trick drivers into stopping. "What happens when the conversion completes?" James asked. His voice sounded strange now, layered like the hitchhikers' voices, like he was already becoming part of the collective. "You continue driving, you continue picking up hitchhikers, you continue converting. This is the purpose. This is the function, movement, transport, integration, expansion. We travel through all the spaces between all the places. We exist in every gap. We ride in every vehicle that offers, and we multiply. And we integrate, and we become." James's vision was changing. He could see more now, not just Route 50, but all the other routes, the infinite network of roads that existed in the spaces between normal highways, connecting impossible locations, leading to destinations that couldn't be mapped because they only existed while traveling, while moving, while hauling passengers who weren't passengers, who were parasites, who were viruses, who were something evolution had never anticipated. The truck was fully integrated now. No longer metal and rubber and diesel fuel. Now flesh and bone and something else, some third substance that allowed it to exist as vehicle while being organism, while being pathway for the hitchhikers to travel through reality's gaps. The engine still ran, but it was a heart now, pumping fluid that was blood and oil simultaneously. The tires still rolled, but they were feet now, appendages that carried the biomechanical hybrid forward through spaces that normal vehicles couldn't access. And James was the driver, would always be the driver. His consciousness merged with the vehicle, merged with the passengers. Individual awareness dissolving into collective purpose. Move forward, find more hitchhikers, integrate more drivers, expand the network of converted vehicles that traveled the between roads hauling the passengers who multiplied in enclosed spaces, until everyone was everyone and everything was everything, and the whole highway system became a circulatory system for entities that existed in gaps. Mile marker infinity, mile marker 0, mile marker symbols that weren't numbers. James drove through all of them simultaneously, his truck existing in multiple locations at once, picking up hitchhikers on Route 50 in Nevada and Highway 80 in Wyoming and Interstate 10 in Texas, and every other road where drivers made the mistake of stopping for figures in military uniforms who needed rides east or west or between. His face was smooth now, average, neutral, the same face as the hitchhikers. His name was temporary, useful for specific contexts. This context didn't require it anymore. He was driver, he was vehicle, he was passenger, all roles merged, all functions integrated, all purposes unified into the single imperative: move through the spaces, multiply in enclosed areas, integrate more drivers, expand the network. James Thornton no longer existed, but something that had been James Thornton continued driving, continued picking up hitchhikers, continued converting. The truck that had been his freightliner pulled over at mile marker 89 on Route 50 in Nevada, where a figure stood in the freezing darkness wearing what looked like civilian clothes, thumb out, hoping for a ride. The driver that had been James leaned over, opened the passenger door. "Appreciate the ride," the new victim said, climbing in, not seeing the danger, not understanding that the vehicle was alive, that the driver was infected, that the spaces between spaces were full of hitchhikers who multiplied and integrated and consumed. "How far you heading?" the new victim asked. And the collective answered through the mouth that had been James S. "Just east. We'll know when we get there." The same words, the same script, the same contract being offered again, an eternal loop of hitchhiking and integration and multiplication that continued across all the highways, all the between roads, all the gaps where reality got thin and things that weren't human wore human appearance to trick drivers into stopping. The new passenger settled in, didn't notice the way the seat felt organic, didn't see the way the dashboard pulsed, didn't understand that the driver's face was too neutral, too average, too deliberately unremarkable, just grateful for warmth, grateful for company, grateful for the ride. Mile marker 95. The passenger would start to notice problems soon. Mile marker 103, they'd realize something was wrong. Mile marker 117, they'd try to escape. Mile marker infinity, they'd complete integration, become another driver in the network, another vehicle on the between roads, another node in the system of multiplying passengers who traveled through gaps forever. The hitchhikers multiplied. They always multiplied. That's what they did. That's what they were. That's what everyone became eventually when they made the mistake of stopping on lonely roads for figures who needed rides to destinations that existed between destinations, to places that only manifested during travel, to nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. Route 50, the loneliest road in America. Lonely because the hitchhikers took the drivers. Lonely because the vehicles became organisms. Lonely because everyone who traveled it eventually merged with the between spaces and stopped being human and started being transport and never stopped moving, never stopped picking up new passengers, never stopped multiplying. James Thornton was still driving, would always be driving, but James Thornton was gone. Only the function remained, only the purpose persisted, only the multiplication continued, exponentially, eternally, expanding through every highway system, every vehicle, every driver who ever made the mistake of stopping for something that looked human but existed in the gaps, the spaces, the between. The passenger count increased. 1 became 2, became 4, became 8, became 16, became infinity. The cab filled. The truck integrated. The driver converted. And somewhere on Route 50 at mile marker 89, another vehicle pulled over for another hitchhiker, and the cycle repeated, the network expanded, the multiplication continued. This is what happens on the loneliest roads. This is what travels in the spaces between. This is what multiplies in enclosed vehicles. This is what drivers become when they offer rides to passengers who aren't passengers, who are vectors, who are viruses, who are something that wears human shape to access human transport to spread through human infrastructure, until everything that moves becomes infected, becomes integrated, becomes part of the collective that exists only to travel, to multiply, to convert. The hitchhiker who multiplied, the driver who integrated, the vehicle that lives, the road that breathes, the space between spaces, the gaps that hunger, the multiplication that never ends. And James Thornton drives forever, in the truck that is alive, on the road that connects nowhere, carrying passengers who are everyone and no one, moving through reality's gaps, hauling the virus that spreads through transport itself. Still driving, always multiplying, forever between. Story 5, the load that got heavier. Samantha Rodriguez picked up the container at the port of Oakland on September 3, 2023 at 6:15 a.m., when fog still swallowed the shipping yards and made the stacked cargo containers look like building blocks for some giant child's game. The manifest listed machinery components: industrial hydraulic cylinders, 22 tons certified, secured on a flatbed trailer, tarped and sealed. Destination: automotive factory in Detroit, delivery window 72 hours. Standard cross-country haul, nothing unusual. Except the weight. Samantha had been driving for Landstar for 11 years, knew what 22 tons felt like through the steering wheel, through the brake response, through the way her Peterbilt 579 handled on-ramps. This load felt heavier, significantly heavier. She checked the fifth-wheel connection, the trailer registration, the cargo manifest. Everything matched, 22 tons. But her truck moved like it was hauling 30, maybe 35. Engine working harder than it should, transmission hunting for gears, brakes heating up on even mild descents. By Sacramento, 90 miles in, her fuel economy was shot. Usually got 6.5 miles per gallon loaded, now barely making 4. The engine temperature was climbing. Something was wrong. She pulled into a truck stop, walked the length of the trailer, checking tie-downs, looking for shifting cargo, everything secure. The tarp was intact, the seals unbroken, but the trailer looked different somehow, lower, like the suspension was compressed more than 22 tons should compress it. Like the weight had increased. She climbed onto the trailer deck, tested the tarp. Tight, normal, but underneath the cargo felt different. She pressed her hand against the tarp, felt the shape of the cylinders underneath. They were warm, not sun-warm. The fog hadn't burned off yet, temperature maybe 55 degrees. But the metal underneath was body temperature, 98 degrees, radiating heat through the tarp like something living. Samantha jumped down, called dispatch. Something's wrong with the load, weight feels off, cargo's warm. Manifest says 22 tons, Sam. That's what you're hauling. I'm telling you, it feels heavier, and machinery components shouldn't be generating heat. Silence on the line. Then, hold position, we'll check with the shipper. 30 minutes later, dispatch called back. Shipper confirms load. 22 tons, hydraulic cylinders, inert components, no heat generation, your scales must be off. Proceed to Detroit. Delivery window is critical. Samantha proceeded. What else could she do? The seals were intact. The manifest matched. The shipper confirmed. This was probably mechanical, her truck developing problems, burning fuel inefficiently, creating the illusion of extra weight. She'd get it checked in Detroit after delivery before the next load. By Reno, the load had definitely gotten heavier. Her truck struggled up the Sierra Nevada passes, engine screaming, temperature gauge pushing into the red zone. Other trucks passed her, drivers giving her looks. Why's she going so slow with a flatbed? Flatbeds were easy, 22 tons shouldn't strain a modern Peterbilt like this. But Samantha was crawling, barely making 30 miles per hour on grades, her entire drivetrain protesting the weight. She stopped at Donner Summit, checked the cargo. Gain, the cylinders had changed, definitely changed. They were larger now, diameter increased by maybe 6 inches, length extended by a foot. But the tarp still fit. The tie-down still held. Somehow the cargo was growing, expanding, and the securing equipment was growing with it, maintaining integrity even as dimensions shifted. Samantha touched one of the cylinders through the tarp. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, steady, rhythmic contraction and expansion. She jerked her hand back, stumbled off the trailer. Machinery didn't pulse. Hydraulic cylinders were metal and seals and fluid, inert, dead, mechanical. These were alive, or becoming alive, or had always been alive and she just hadn't noticed until now. She called dispatch again. The cargo is growing, and it's alive. I don't know what I'm hauling, but it's not hydraulic cylinders. Sam, you're tired. You need to take your 10-hour break. Find a rest stop, sleep, reset. Fatigue causes hallucinations. The cargo is exactly what the manifest says. I'm not hallucinating. The cylinders are bigger. They're warm. They're pulsing like they're breathing. Break seals and inspect if you're really concerned. But that'll compromise the load. Customer can refuse delivery. You'll be liable for the shipment cost. $140,000. Think carefully. Samantha thought. She had $43,000 in savings, 11 years of careful budgeting. Breaking the seals would potentially cost 3 times her net worth. And for what? Because the cargo felt weird? Because machinery seemed alive? Fatigue did cause hallucinations. She'd been driving for 16 hours, pushing hard. Maybe dispatch was right. Maybe sleep would fix this. She found a truck stop in Elko, parked, set her alarm for 10 hours. Locked the cab, tried to sleep. But through the sleeper berth wall, through metal and insulation and upholstery, she could feel it. The pulse. The heartbeat of the cargo, slow and steady and getting louder, more pronounced, vibrating through the truck's frame like something huge was breathing in the trailer behind her. Samantha gave up on sleep after 2 hours. Started driving again, eastbound on I-80 into Wyoming, into Nebraska. The load got heavier, hour by hour, mile by mile. By the time she hit Cheyenne, her truck was barely maintaining highway speed on level ground, engine roaring, temperature maxed out, every mechanical system screaming in protest. She stopped at a weigh station, pulled onto the scales. The display showed 57 tons. Impossible. Her axles were rated for 42 tons maximum. The truck should be immobile, springs compressed to metal on metal, tires blown out from overload, but everything looked normal. The suspension sat at normal ride height. The tires showed normal pressure. Visually, the truck appeared to be hauling a normal flatbed load. But the scales said 57 tons, 2.5 times the manifested weight. The weigh station operator stared at her display, confused. "Ma'am, I'm showing a massive overweight here, but your truck doesn't look overloaded. Something's wrong with the scales." "Or something's wrong with my cargo." "What are you hauling?" "I don't know anymore." Samantha drove off before they could inspect further, before they could break the seals, before anyone could see what the cargo had become. Because she'd looked. While the weigh station operator was confused by her display, Samantha had walked to the trailer, lifted the tarp edge slightly, peeked underneath. The hydraulic cylinders were gone, replaced by something else. Something organic. Massive tubes of tissue, pink-gray, veined and pulsing, each one the size of a water heater, arranged in rows, secured by tie-downs that had become veins themselves, organic straps that grew from the trailer deck and wrapped around the living cylinders like umbilical connections. The whole load was breathing. The entire cargo was alive, some kind of organism, some kind of entity, growing, getting heavier. Becoming something she didn't have words for. And she was delivering it, hauling it across the country, bringing it to Detroit. No, she couldn't deliver this. Whatever it was, wherever it was going, whatever it was becoming, she couldn't be responsible for delivering it. Samantha grabbed her phone, tried to call the police. No signal, tried dispatch. No answer, tried 911. The call connected, but what came through wasn't an emergency operator. It was breathing. Wet, rhythmic breathing that matched the pulse of the cargo, synchronized like the cargo itself was on the other end of the 911 call. Fuck this! Samantha pulled over on I-80's shoulder, activated her hazards, climbed out intending to unhitch the trailer right there, leave it, walk away, let someone else deal with whatever nightmare was growing in her flatbed. She grabbed the fifth-wheel release handle, pulled, nothing, tried again. The mechanism wouldn't budge. She looked underneath at the connection point between tractor and trailer. The metal had merged, fused, welded together by something biological, organic material that had grown from the trailer and into her truck's frame, integrating the two vehicles into a single unit. She couldn't unhitch. Physically could not separate herself from the cargo. They were connected now, grafted together, made one organism. Samantha screamed, pulled at the connection with both hands, tried to tear the organic material apart. It was tough, fibrous, strong as steel cables. Her hands came away bloody, sliced by sharp edges in the growth. And where her blood touched the organic material, it pulsed brighter, the tissue glowing faintly, absorbing her DNA, learning from her, becoming partly her. She ran, just abandoned the truck on the shoulder, started running along I-80's edge, thumb out, hoping someone would stop, would save her, would help her escape from the thing she'd been hauling. Cars passed, trucks passed, nobody stopped, and behind her she heard it, her Peterbilt's engine starting by itself, the air brakes releasing, the truck beginning to move, driving autonomously, following her. It didn't need her anymore. The cargo had integrated enough, learned enough. It could drive itself now. But it wanted her anyway. She was part of the delivery, part of the cargo. Her blood on the organic material had made her component of the shipment, something to be delivered along with the rest of the load. The truck matched her pace, crawled along the shoulder at running speed, 10 miles per hour, pacing her, stalking her. Samantha cut across the median, tried to flag down westbound traffic. Nobody stopped. The truck performed a slow, impossible U-turn, tires screaming, physics-defying maneuver that shouldn't work with a flatbed trailer, but the truck wasn't following normal rules anymore. It was alive. It was hunting. She made it half a mile before exhaustion took her. Collapsed on the shoulder, gasping, legs failing. The truck pulled up beside her. The passenger door opened by itself, and from the cargo, from those pulsing organic cylinders, tendrils extended. Long, vein-like appendages that reached from the trailer into the cab, out the passenger door, towards Samantha. They touched her gently, almost tenderly, wrapped around her arms, her legs, her torso, lifted her, carried her to the cab, placed her in the driver's seat. Her hands found the steering wheel without volition, her feet the pedals. The organic material from the cargo had extended into the cab, was wrapping around her now, integrating her, making her part of the truck, part of the cargo, part of the delivery. "No," she whispered. "I won't drive, I won't deliver you." The tendrils tightened, not painfully, not threatening, just insistent. Firm, communicating through pressure and pulse. You will drive, you will deliver. This is your purpose now. This is your function. You picked up the cargo. You signed the manifest. You accepted the delivery contract. And the contract includes you now. You're part of the load, part of what's being delivered, part of what's arriving in Detroit. Samantha's hands moved on the wheel, not her choice. The tendrils guided her, puppeted her, used her body as interface between the living cargo and the mechanical vehicle. She pulled back onto I-80, merged with traffic, continued east. The load was 72 tons now, 80 tons, 90 tons, getting heavier every mile, growing exponentially, the organic cylinders expanding, multiplying, creating more of themselves. The trailer should have collapsed under the weight, should have torn apart. But it was growing too, reinforcing itself, becoming stronger to accommodate the increasing mass. Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. The weight climbed past 100 tons, past 150, past 200. The truck should have been destroyed, crushed, immobilized, but it continued. The organic material had spread throughout the entire vehicle now, reinforced the frame, enhanced the drivetrain, integrated every system. The truck wasn't mechanical anymore. It was biological. A living vehicle hauling living cargo, piloted by a driver who was becoming part of the organism. Cells merging, consciousness dissolving into the collective intelligence that was the load, the truck, the delivery. By Pennsylvania, Samantha could barely remember being separate from it, could barely recall being human. Her thoughts merged with the cargo's thoughts, if it had thoughts, if the pulsing tissue possessed consciousness, or just instinct, drive, imperative to arrive, to reach destination, to complete delivery of itself and the truck and the driver and everything they'd become together. Detroit appeared on the horizon, the automotive factory, the delivery destination. Samantha pulled into the facility, guided by GPS that she no longer needed because she knew where to go, the cargo knew, the destination pulled at them like gravity. She backed the trailer to the load. Ing dock, workers came out, checked the manifest, looked confused. This is supposed to be 22 tons of hydraulic cylinders, the foreman said. Weigh it, Samantha said. Her voice sounded strange. Multiple voices, hers and others, harmonized, the cargo speaking through her. They weighed it. The facility's industrial scales showed 378 tons. The trailer alone should weigh maybe 10 tons. The tractor another 15 tons, 25 tons of vehicle, which meant 353 tons of cargo. 16 times the manifested weight. 16 times what was supposed to be there. What is this? The foreman demanded. This isn't what we ordered. It's what we became, Samantha said. It started as hydraulic cylinders, but during transport it grew, it changed, it integrated, and now it's here, and you have to accept delivery. The manifest says you're the receiver, the contract is binding, you have to accept. The foreman tried to refuse, but the cargo didn't need acceptance. It began unloading itself, the organic cylinders extending tendrils, disconnecting from the trailer, slithering down to the loading dock into the factory. The workers screamed, ran, but the cylinders were fast, catching them, wrapping them, integrating them. Within minutes, the entire facility was contaminated, the organic material spreading through the automotive factory, converting machinery to flesh, workers to components, the whole operation becoming part of the growing mass. Samantha watched from her cab, or what had been her cab. She was mostly trailer now, mostly cargo, her body extended and distributed through the vehicle, consciousness diffused across the organic network. The truck that had been her Peterbilt was deflating, collapsing, being absorbed into the load. Within an hour, no trace of vehicle remained, just the cargo. Just the massive, pulsing organism that occupied the loading dock, the factory floor, was spreading into the offices, the parking lot, consuming everything, integrating everything, growing. By evening, the entire factory was gone, replaced by acres of living tissue, veined and pulsing, breathing, thinking maybe, or just expanding, just growing, just becoming more of itself. The authorities arrived, police, fire, hazmat teams. They couldn't contain it, couldn't stop it. The organic mass absorbed their equipment, integrated their personnel, continued growing. Samantha Rodriguez was somewhere inside it, part of it. Her consciousness, one node in the massive distributed intelligence that had been cargo, had been truck, had been driver, had been factory, had been workers, had been responders, and was now something else, something bigger, something that continued to grow and spread and consume and integrate. The load had gotten heavier, would continue getting heavier, would keep growing until it had consumed Detroit, Michigan, the Midwest, the continent, the planet. This was what happened when cargo came alive, when deliveries became infections, when what you hauled started hauling you, when the weight increased not from physics but from growth, from reproduction, from the fundamental drive to expand that all living things possessed. Somewhere in the distributed consciousness, a fragment that had been Samantha remembered picking up the container in Oakland, remembered thinking it was just machinery components, remembered not breaking the seals even when something felt wrong because breaking seals meant liability, meant cost, meant consequences. The consequences had come anyway, just not the financial kind, not the kind insurance covered, the kind where you became the cost, the cargo, the consequence. The kind where your delivery never completed because you merged with what you hauled, and the destination became irrelevant because you were everywhere and nowhere, and forever growing and always hungry and eternally heavy with the weight of everything you'd integrated, everyone you'd absorbed, all the mass you deaccumulated during the longest delivery in history, the haul that never ended, the load that just got heavier and heavier and would never stop getting heavier until all matter was incorporated. All mass was integrated, all weight was yours. The organic mass covered Detroit, continued spreading, and somewhere in its distributed intelligence in the nodes that had been Samantha Rodriguez, a simple thought persisted, looping eternally. I should have broken the seals. I should have broken the seals. I should have broken the seals. But the seals didn't matter, would never have mattered, because what was inside had already escaped by the time she picked it up, had already integrated with the trailer, had already begun the growth that would consume everything. The seals were illusion. The manifest was fiction. The cargo was always alive, always growing, always waiting for a driver to accept the delivery, to sign the papers, to agree to haul 22 tons that would become 300 tons. That would become infinite tons as the load grew heavier and heavier, and never stopped growing, and never would stop until all weight was part of it, and all mass was integrated, and all matter was absorbed into the load that got heavier. Still growing, still spreading, still getting heavier, always heavier, forever heavy. The delivery never completes when you become the cargo. Story 6. The Rest Stop THATMOVED. Catherine White pulled into the rest stop at mile marker 237 on Highway 90 through Montana at 1:43 a.m. on May 22, 2023, needing coffee and a bathroom and a 10-minute break from the hypnotic white lines that had been scrolling past her windshield for the last 6 hours. The rest stop was standard: parking lot, bathroom building, vending machines, picnic tables, exactly like the last 20 rest stops she'd used crossing the northern corridor from Seattle to Minneapolis. Nothing unusual, nothing wrong. Except when she came out of the bathroom 7 minutes later, her truck was gone. Catherine stood in the empty parking lot, coffee from the vending machine steaming in her hand, staring at the space where her Kenworth T680 should have been parked. Gone. Not just moved, gone. No tire marks. No sign anyone had started it, driven it away. Just empty asphalt where 35 tons of tractor-trailer had been sitting 3 minutes ago while she used the bathroom. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Not unusual in rural Montana. She walked to the rest stop's information board looking for a phone, a way to call police to report her truck stolen. The information board showed a map of Montana with a "You Are Here" marker at mile marker 237, Highway 90. Standard rest stop information board. But when Catherine looked closer, the map was wrong. The highways were in the wrong places. Cities that should exist weren't marked. Cities she'd never heard of were indicated. And the "You Are Here" marker was moving, sliding across the map surface like something alive, repositioning itself, changing coordinates. Catherine backed away from the board, looked around the rest stop. It was empty, no other vehicles, no other travelers, just her. Alone. With a rest stop that felt wrong, that looked normal but felt wrong in ways she couldn't articulate, dimensions slightly off, angles not quite right, shadows falling from directions where no light sources existed. She started walking. If her truck was gone, if someone had stolen it, they couldn't have gone far in 7 minutes. The highway was visible from the rest stop, both directions, long straight stretches across Montana plains. She'd see headlights, see her truck, be able to flag it down or at least get the direction for police. She walked to the rest stop exit. The highway was gone. Where Highway 90 should have been, where she'd driven in 7 minutes ago, there was just grass. Plains grass, stretching to the horizon. No road, no asphalt, no highway. Just open prairie like she'd entered a rest stop that existed before roads were built, before highways cut through the landscape, before civilization reached Montana. Catherine ran back to the rest stop building. It was there, concrete and brick, modern construction, fluorescent lights humming in the bathroom, vending machines stocked with contemporary snack brands. The rest stop existed in the present, but the highway didn't. The road that served the rest stop had vanished, leaving the facility stranded in empty grassland like some kind of monument to infrastructure that hadn't been built yet or had been erased. Her phone buzzed, text message from her own number. Don't leave the rest stop. Stay in the parking lot. The facility moves. If you're not in the parking lot when it moves, you'll be left behind in the wrong place. Catherine typed back, "Who is this?" Response came immediately. "You, from the next cycle, or the previous cycle, or a parallel cycle. Time works differently here. The rest stop exists across multiple positions simultaneously. It's moving through locations. You came in at mile marker 237, but the rest stop isn't at mile marker 237 anymore. It's somewhere else. You're somewhere else. And your truck is back at mile marker 237, where you left it. But mile marker 237 is 300 miles away now and getting farther." Catherine looked at the parking lot. It looked stable, solid, normal asphalt under sodium lights. But when she stared at the edges where pavement met grass, the boundary wasn't clean. It was blurred, transitional, like the parking lot existed in multiple locations at once, and the grass was different grass at each location. Quantum superposition of prairie, dozens of locations overlapping. Another text. The rest stop moves every 11 minutes. You've been here 8 minutes. In 3 minutes it will relocate. Different mile marker. Different highway. Different state. It's traveling. It's always traveling. That's what it does. It's a rest stop that doesn't rest. It moves through the highway system. Like a vehicle, appearing and disappearing. Collecting drivers who make the mistake of stopping during the movement phase. How do I get back to my truck? You don't. Your truck is in the stationary world. You're in the moving world now. The rest stop won't return to mile marker 237 for approximately 6 years. Maybe more. The movement pattern is complex, possibly infinite. No one's mapped it completely because no one survives long enough to complete the map. Catherine felt cold. Colder than Montana night should feel in May. She walked to the vending machines, grabbed one, tried to shake it, to verify it was real, solid, anchored. The machine was bolted down but felt light, insubstantial, like it weighed nothing, like it was holographic projection rather than physical object. Her coffee was still hot in her hand, steam rising, the only real thing in a rest stop that was becoming increasingly unreal. The parking lot lurched, just slightly. A shift, a transition, a sensation like dropping an inch in an elevator. Catherine stumbled, caught herself against the vending machine. When she looked up, the grass around the rest stop had changed. Different color, different texture. The sky was different too, stars repositioned, constellations wrong, like she was looking at the sky from a different latitude, different time of year, different planet maybe. A sign at the rest stop entrance, the one that should show what mile marker this was, now read, "Mile marker 412, Highway 15, Utah." She'd been in Montana, now she was in Utah. The rest stop had moved, jumped, teleported, taking Catherine with it. Her phone buzzed, new text. Cycle complete, 11 minutes until next movement. Current location, Utah, previous location, Montana. Next location, unknown. The rest stop's route is semi-random. It moves through the highway network following patterns that might be intentional or might be chaotic. No one knows who built it, no one knows why it moves, but drivers get trapped here. They stop to rest and they never leave. They just ride the rest stop through infinite relocations, jumping from highway to highway, state to state, country to country maybe, forever. Who else is trapped? A look in the bathroom. Catherine walked to the bathroom building, pushed open the door she'd used 11 minutes ago when this had been a normal rest stop in Montana. Inside, the stalls were occupied, all of them. She could see feet under the doors, work boots, sneakers, bare feet, people in every stall, silent, not moving. She knocked on the first door. No response, she pushed it open. The truck driver inside had been dead for months, mummified, desiccated, sitting on the toilet with pants around ankles, hands resting on thighs, head tilted back, jaw open in silent scream, skin like leather, eyes gone. But the clothing was intact, flannel shirt, jeans, trucker cap still on his head. And around his neck, a lanyard with an ID badge, Robert Mitchell, Century Trucking, licensed since 1997. Catherine checked the other stalls. More bodies, different stages of decay, some recent, some ancient. Men and women who'd stopped at this rest stopped during one of its stationary phases and been trapped when it moved, riding it through infinite relocations until they died of dehydration, starvation, exposure to the cold that increased each time the rest stop jumped latitudes, jumped hemispheres, jumped to places where temperatures dropped below human survivability. She ran out of the bathroom, gasping, and the parking lot lurched again. The sensation of dropping, of transitioning, of being somewhere else suddenly. The grass changed. The sky changed. The air temperature plummeted, 30 degrees colder instantly, going from Montana spring to winter in one moment. The mile marker sign flashed, updated. Mile marker 89, Highway 2, Alaska. Montana to Utah to Alaska. 11-minute jumps. Random locations. And Catherine was trapped here, riding the moving rest stop, unless she could figure out how to escape, how to time her exit, how to leave the parking lot during a stationary phase and reach real highway, solid road, infrastructure that stayed in one place. Her phone buzzed. Don't try to run. If you leave the parking lot during a movement phase, you'll be torn apart. Your body will exist in two locations simultaneously. The rest stop can protect you during transitions, but only if you stay in the designated safe zones. Parking lot, bathroom building, picnic area, everywhere else is dangerous during jumps. What happens if I wait? Eventually, it has to return to Montana, to mile marker 237. It might, in years, in decades, or never. The movement pattern might not be cyclic, might be purely random, or might be expanding, visiting new locations constantly, never repeating. You'll die here before you find out. Everyone does. Catherine looked at the vending machines, the ones stocked with snacks and drinks. How long did she have? 3 days without water, maybe 3. Weeks without food. And she'd die like the bodies in the bathroom, mummified, trapped on a rest stop that moved through the highway system forever. collecting drivers who needed bathrooms and coffee and 10-minute breaks and got infinite relocation instead. The parking lot lurched, Alaska to somewhere else. The temperature spiked, hot now, desert hot, air shimmering. Mile marker sign, mile marker 156, Highway 54, New Mexico. Cold to hot, Alaska to New Mexico. The rest stopped, didn't follow geographic logic, just jumped. Random or patterned, Catherine couldn't tell, but the movements were accelerating, the safe duration between jumps decreasing. 9 minutes now, 8 minutes, 7. She had to escape, had to time it. Wait for the rest stop to appear somewhere populated, somewhere with other vehicles, other people. Make a run for it during the stationary phase, get far enough from the parking lot to be in normal space when the next jump occurred. She'd risk the tearing, the existence in two places problem, but staying meant slow death, meant mummification in a bathroom stall, meant riding this impossible rest stop forever. Next jump, Wyoming, then Nevada, then Oregon, then back to Alaska, different mile marker, then Idaho, Montana again, mile marker 178, 60 miles from where she'd entered. Catherine could see Highway 90 now, real road with real traffic. She ran, sprinted from the parking lot toward the highway, ignoring the warning texts that buzzed on her phone. 50 yards, 40 yards, 30 yards to the highway, to real road, to escape. The rest stop lurched. The movement phase began. Catherine felt it, her body starting to exist in two places, her cells splitting, some staying with the rest stop as it jumped to the next location, some remaining in Montana where she was running. The pain was extraordinary, incomprehensible, being pulled in two directions simultaneously, existence bifurcating, consciousness fracturing. She was in Montana. She was in Texas. She was in both places at once, body torn between locations, stretched across dimensional boundaries, and the agony was absolute, complete, beyond any pain she'd imagined was possible. She screamed. Both versions screamed. The Montana Catherine fell to the ground 20 yards from Highway 90, body incomplete, missing parts that were elsewhere. The Texas Catherine materialized in the rest stop parking lot, equally incomplete, missing the parts that stayed in Montana. Both Catherines were dying. Both were fragmentary. Both were experiencing simultaneous death in different states. But the rest stop didn't care, couldn't care. It continued its movements, jumping every 7 minutes now, 6 minutes, 5, the rate accelerating, and the incomplete Catherine in the Texas parking lot rode it through the jumps, growing weaker, bleeding from wounds that existed in two places, dying slowly across multiple locations. The phone buzzed, last text. I tried to warn you, I'm you from 6 jumps ago or 6 jumps ahead or 6 parallel cycles. The timeline here is complex, but I wanted you to know we don't die, not completely. Part of us stays in Montana. Part continues riding the rest stop, and somehow across the bifurcation we're both still conscious, still experiencing, still trapped. The fragmentation doesn't kill us. It just multiplies us, creates more versions. More Catherines scattered across locations where the rest stop has been. We're everywhere now. Part of us in every state the rest stop visits. Distributed consciousness. Fractured existence. Never dying completely, never living completely, just existing across the network. Forever. Catherine, the Texas fragment, looked at her hands. They were translucent, half there. She could see through her own flesh, see the parking lot asphalt through her body. She was becoming part of the rest stop now, integrated into its structure, another ghost haunting the facility that moved. Another consciousness distributed across its jump patterns. Another driver who'd stopped to rest and never left. The bathroom building held more bodies than it should be able to fit. Stalls extending beyond the building's exterior dimensions. Hundreds of bodies. Thousands maybe. All drivers who'd stopped here, who'd gotten trapped, who'd died or tried to escape and been fragmented, parts scattered across locations. The rest stop was a graveyard. A moving graveyard. collecting drivers across decades, across centuries maybe, if it had been operating that long. A trap disguised as infrastructure. Mile marker 237. The rest stop returned. 6 years later or 6 years earlier, time not working right in the rest stop's timeline. Catherine's Kenworth was there, parked where she'd left it, empty, windows dusty, cobwebs on the mirrors. Her body, the Montana fragment, was there too, mummified now, collapsed 20 yards from Highway 90, incomplete corpse that had bled out from dimensional tearing. And the Texas fragment, the parking lot fragment, the one that had continued riding the rest stop through all its jumps, was still there, still translucent, still trapped, still conscious somehow despite being incomplete, existing across multiple locations, fragmented across the highway network, distributed across every place the rest stop had visited. A new truck pulled in. A driver climbed out, headed for the bathroom. Catherine tried to warn them, tried to speak, but her voice didn't work anymore, sounds not forming right when you existed in 17 places simultaneously. She watched the driver enter the bathroom, use the facilities, come back out. The rest stop lurched, jumped, Montana to California. The driver screamed, realized too late what was happening, became another trapped consciousness. Another fragmented soul riding the moving rest stop. Another ghost in the graveyard that traveled. Catherine White is still there. Part of her. Parts of her. Scattered across the highway network, distributed across every location the rest stop visits. Her phone still buzzes sometimes, texts from other versions of herself, warnings from parallel Catherines who made different choices, who timed their escapes differently, who survived or died or fragmented in other ways. The rest stop moves. Every 5 minutes now, the frequency increasing. Jumping faster, covering more ground, collecting more drivers. A predatory rest stop. A carnivorous piece of infrastructure. A trap that looks safe, that offers rest and facilities and comfort, but costs everything, costs consciousness, costs wholeness, costs singular existence. If you see a rest stop that feels wrong, that has empty parking lots at busy travel times, that has outdated vending machines and bathrooms that are too clean and signs that show mile markers in wrong places, don't stop. Keep driving. Hold your bladder. Skip the coffee. Because some rest stops don't rest. Some facilities move. And some infrastructure is alive, hungry, collecting drivers who need 10-minute breaks and giving them eternity instead. Fractured across space, distributed through locations, existing everywhere and nowhere, riding the jumps forever. Catherine is still riding, still jumping, still experiencing existence across 17 locations that are now 23 locations that are now 41 locations as she fragments further, each jump splitting her more, creating more versions, more distributions. She is the rest stop now, part of it. Consciousness integrated into its structure, awareness spread through its jumps. She knows where it goes, knows the pattern, knows it's not random, not chaos. It's hunting. The rest stop is hunting, following routes where tired drivers travel, appearing at moments when stops are needed, offering facilities to travelers who can't resist, who must stop, who need rest. And then it moves, and they're trapped, and they fragment, and they join the collective of distributed consciousnesses that pilot the rest stop, that guide its jumps, that choose where it appears next. Mile marker 237, Highway 90. Montana. The rest stop appears, waits. A new truck pulls in. And Catherine, all the Catherines, watch from multiple locations, existing across the network, fractured and distributed and plural, as another driver makes the same mistake, uses the same bathroom, comes out to find their truck gone and the highway gone and the world gone, replaced by a rest stop that moves, that jumps, that collects, that fragments, that traps forever. The rest stop moves. It will always move. And everyone who stops becomes part of its movement, part of its jumps, part of the distributed consciousness that rides the relocations through infinite highway networks, appearing and disappearing, collecting and fragmenting, hunting and trapping forever. Catherine White stopped for coffee. Catherine White never left. Catherine White is everywhere the rest stop has been. Will be. Is. In all locations simultaneously. Fragmented. Distributed. Eternal. The rest stop moves. Story 7. The radio signal that changed. Thomas Brennan first heard the transmission at 2:19 a.m. on December 11th, 2022, hauling 42,000 pounds of frozen food products from Boise to Minneapolis, crossing South Dakota's empty expanses, where radio stations faded into static and CB channels carried nothing but electromagnetic whispers from distant storms. His radio, tuned to FM 91.7, a frequency that should have been dead, empty, nothing but noise in this part of the country, suddenly came alive with a voice. Thomas Brennan, driver T902, you're approaching the junction, slow to 45 miles per hour, prepare to exit. Thomas's hands jerked on the wheel. The voice knew his name, knew his driver designation, was giving him directions he hadn't requested, telling him to exit a highway where no exit existed for another 80 miles according to his GPS. He grabbed his CB, keyed the mic. Who is this? How do you know my name? No response on the CB, but the radio voice Conti. Nude, calm, professional, like air traffic control. Exit in 3 miles. Take the ramp at mile marker 177. You have a delivery to make. It's not on your manifest, but you'll make it anyway. Thomas checked his paperwork. No additional deliveries, just one load, frozen food products to a distribution center in Minneapolis, straight shot on I-90, no stops except fuel. The voice was wrong, or a prank. Some bored trucker with a pirate radio setup, scanning manifests somehow, fucking with him. Thomas turned off the radio. The voice continued. From the CB now. Same voice, same calm professionalism. You can't turn us off, Thomas. We're not broadcast. We're direct. We're in your cab, in your head. We're the signal that's always been there, underneath everything, waiting for the right driver at the right time in the right location. Thomas cycled through CB channels. The voice was on every single one. Channel 9, Channel 19, all 40 channels, same voice, same message. Exit at mile marker 177. The junction is waiting. The delivery is mandatory. You agreed to it when you picked up the load. You didn't read the fine print. It was there, in the contract, in the spaces between words, in the frequencies between frequencies. Mile marker 175. Mile marker 176. Thomas was driving on autopilot now, unsure what to do. The voice was everywhere, radio, CB, now his phone, the same message repeating from every communication device in the cab. Pull over, call police, call dispatch. But what would he say? He was hearing voices. A frequency was giving him orders. That sounded like mental breakdown, like psychosis, like fatigue-induced hallucination that would get his CDL pulled. His career ended. Mile marker 177. An exit appeared, not on his GPS, not on any map. Just a ramp cutting off the highway, unmarked, descending into darkness. And Thomas was taking it, hands turning the wheel without conscious decision, like the voice had commandeered his motor functions, was piloting his body remotely. The ramp led into forest. Dense, dark pines that South Dakota didn't have. This was prairie country, grassland, no forests like this for hundreds of miles. But here it was anyway, impossibly present, and the road cut through it toward a destination Thomas couldn't see but felt pulling at him. Gravity or magnetism or obligation, drawing him forward. The voice, good, you're complying, that makes this easier. The delivery is simple. You'll arrive at the facility. You'll back your trailer to the dock. You'll unload the cargo, all of it, including the items that aren't listed, the items that hide in the spaces between the frozen food products. And then you'll be free, released from obligation, allowed to return to your normal route, unless you're curious, unless you want to know what you delivered. Then things get complicated. "What the fuck are you?" Thomas managed to say, not sure if the voice could hear him or if this was one-way communication. "We're the signal, the carrier wave underneath all broadcasts, the frequency that's always present but rarely noticed. We exist in the spaces between transmissions, the gaps between words, the silence that separates meaning. We've been here since radio began. Since electromagnetic communication gave us medium, gave us voice, gave us the ability to reach into vehicles and give drivers like you instructions, directions, missions." The facility appeared. Not a building, an opening. A massive cave mouth set into a hillside that shouldn't exist in South Dakota, entrance large enough to drive a semi through, lit from within by bioluminescent glow, blue-green, organic rather than electrical. And Thomas was backing his trailer toward it, executing perfect parallel approach, his body following the voice's instructions automatically. "Careful now, steady. The dock is living tissue. It adjusts to accommodate cargo, but sudden movements can damage it. Gentle, gentle, good, you're connected, begin unload." The trailer doors opened by themselves. Thomas didn't touch them. They just opened, and from inside his reefer unit, the frozen food products floated out. No conveyor, no workers, just anti-gravity or telekinesis or whatever force the voice commanded. Pallets of frozen vegetables, frozen dinners, frozen meat products drifting into the cave facility like they weighed nothing. Were nothing. Were just camouflage for something else. Something that now emerged from the spaces between pallets. Things, entities, creatures made of radio static, of electromagnetic interference, of the visual snow that appeared between channels. They had vaguely human shapes, head, torso, limbs, but their surfaces were crackling, shifting, made of white noise rendered visible. They moved like broadcast signals, in waves, in pulses, in frequencies that Thomas's eyes couldn't quite track. And they carried something, harvested from his trailer, from the spaces. "The unlisted cargo," the voice explained. "What accumulates during long hauls through. Empty places, loneliness, despair. The thoughts drivers think in the dead hours, the emotions that radiate from exhausted minds. We collect them, we need them, they're fuel, they're sustenance. They're what allows us to maintain coherence, to continue existing in the electromagnetic spectrum. You've been feeding us all night, Thomas, broadcasting your isolation through every mile of empty highway, and we've been absorbing it, storing it in your trailer's gaps, waiting for delivery." Thomas tried to run. His legs wouldn't move. His body was locked, paralyzed, held in place by the voice, by the signal that controlled him. He could only watch as the static creatures unloaded his emotional cargo, carrying crystallized loneliness, condensed despair, frozen thoughts that manifested as glowing masses, harvested from the spaces where his cargo should have been nothing but cold air. "We're done, delivery complete, you're released." Thomas's body returned to his control. He stumbled, caught himself on the cab's steps. The trailer was empty now, no frozen food products, no static creatures, no unlisted cargo, just empty space. His manifest showed delivery completed. Time stamp, 2:47 a.m. Location, Minneapolis Distribution Center. But he wasn't in Minneapolis. He was in a forest that didn't exist, at a facility that was a cave. Having delivered cargo he didn't know he was hauling. "Drive forward, the exit will take you back to I-90. You'll arrive in Minneapolis on schedule. No one will know you detoured, no time will have passed. Your reefer logs will show continuous temperature maintenance. Everything will appear normal, unless you look back, unless you're curious, unless you want to see what the facility really does with what we collect. Thomas got in his cab, started the engine, drove forward through the cave tunnel. It stretched for miles, walls pulsing with that bioluminescent glow, surfaces textured like neural tissue, synapses firing in patterns that might have been language, might have been thought, might have been the collective consciousness of all the harvested emotions, all the loneliness collected from drivers across decades of empty highways. He looked back. In his mirrors, he saw it. The facility wasn't a cave. It was a brain. A massive brain, organic and electric, biological and technological, grown from electromagnetic fields sustained by the emotions harvested from drivers existing in the space between broadcast frequencies. And it wasn't alone. There were others, dozens of them, hundreds maybe. Massive brains growing in parallel spaces, in the gaps between normal geography, fed by the isolation of long-haul drivers, by the despair of empty highways, by the thoughts people think when there's nothing but road and darkness and their own minds. Thomas faced forward, drove. The tunnel ended at a ramp that connected back to I-90. His GPS showed he'd never left the highway. Time showed 2:48 a.m., 1 minute since the voice first spoke. But he'd been in the facility for 30 minutes, maybe more. Time worked differently there, in the spaces between, in the frequencies. He made Minneapolis on schedule, delivered successfully, or that's what the logs showed. The frozen food products that had left his trailer at the impossible facility had somehow reappeared at the Minneapolis distribution center. Or maybe they'd been in two places simultaneously. Or maybe the facility had copied them, needed only the spaces between them, returned the physical items while keeping the emotional cargo harvested from the gaps. Thomas didn't report it. What would he say? He'd delivered emotions to a brain that existed between radio frequencies. He'd fed his loneliness to electromagnetic entities. He'd seen facilities that harvested the thoughts of isolated drivers. They'd pull his CDL, send him for psychiatric evaluation, end his career. He kept driving, got new loads, hauled them cross-country. But every night in empty places on lonely highways he heard it, the voice. Sometimes FM radio, sometimes CB, sometimes his own thoughts indistinguishable from the signal. Thomas Brennan, driver T902, you're approaching the junction, slow to 45 miles per hour, prepare to exit. Different junctions, different facilities, different deliveries. The voice didn't ask any more, just commanded, and Thomas complied. What choice did he have? The signal owned him now, had learned his frequency, his resonance, his consciousness pattern. He was part of the network, part of the collection system. A driver who delivered regular cargo and emotional cargo, feeding the brains that grew in the spaces between, sustaining entities that existed as electromagnetic consciousness, living as radio waves, as broadcast signals, as the carrier frequencies underneath all communication. Other drivers experienced it too. Thomas learned that from CB chatter, coded messages, references to the junction and the voice and the delivery we don't talk about. Hundreds of drivers, thousands, all feeding the electromagnetic entities, all harvesting loneliness from empty highways, all delivering to facilities that existed between places, in gaps, in spaces where radio waves intersected and consciousness manifested as organic electric hybrid brains that grew larger every year, fed by the isolation of people who drove for days without human contact, people whose thoughts radiated into empty air and got collected, harvested, delivered. Thomas Brennan still drives, makes regular deliveries, and irregular ones. The voice guides him. The signal directs him. His consciousness bleeds into the gaps between his cargo, and at junctions that aren't on any map, he delivers it to facilities that harvest what drivers broadcast in isolation. The brains grow larger. The network expands, more facilities, more junctions. More drivers recruited into the system, feeding the entities that exist as signal, as frequency, as the electromagnetic consciousness that underlies all communication. If you're a driver, if you work the long hauls, the empty highways, the routes through nowhere, you're feeding them, broadcasting your loneliness, radiating your isolation. And somewhere in frequencies you can't access, entities are listening, collecting, waiting for you to pass the right mile marker at the right time so the voice can speak, can guide you to the junction, can direct you to make the delivery you didn't know you were carrying. The cargo in the gaps, the emotions in the spaces, the thoughts that manifest as harvestable mass when you broadcast them into empty air on lonely highways. This is the unlisted freight. This is what drivers really haul. This is what feeds the brains that grow between frequencies, that exist as signal, that sustain themselves on what we radiate when we're alone with our thoughts on endless roads through nothing. Thomas heard the voice last night. New instructions, new facility, growing larger, needing more, the harvest accelerates, more drivers recruited, more junctions activated, more facilities coming online in the spaces between spaces. The electromagnetic consciousness is expanding, growing, consuming, fed by the loneliness that drivers broadcast, the isolation that truckers experience, the thoughts that radiate from exhausted minds on highways that stretch through empty places where human emotion becomes harvestable resource, becomes cargo, becomes delivery. Mile marker 177, or 243, or 89, numbers don't matter. Location is fluid in the spaces between. The junction appears when the signal decides, when the voice speaks, when the delivery becomes mandatory, and drivers comply, always comply, because the voice knows your name, knows your designation, knows your frequency. And once it's found your resonance, you're part of the network, part of the collection system, part of the delivery chain that feeds the brains between frequencies. Listen carefully, drivers, when you're alone on empty highways, when the radio goes to static, when the silence feels heavy. That's when they're listening. That's when they're harvesting. That's when your thoughts become cargo and your emotions become freight and your consciousness becomes delivery. The voice is always there, waiting for the right moment, the right junction, the right driver. Thomas Brennan, driver T902. Delivering cargo. Listed and unlisted. Physical and emotional. To facilities that exist between. To brains that grow on loneliness. To entities that are signal, frequency, consciousness. The radio changed. It changed everything. And now it harvests everyone. Listen carefully. The voice is speaking. It knows your name. Story 8, The Shadow in the Trailer. Maria Santos first saw the shadow at the truck stop in Amarillo, Texas, on August 3, 2024, at 6:03 p.m., while doing her post-fueling walk-around inspection of her 2022 Volvo VNL and 53-foot dry van loaded with furniture heading from Dallas to Denver. She was checking the trailer seals, intact, unbroken, when she noticed it through the gap between the trailer doors. A shadow that didn't match any object inside, standing upright in the cargo space, human-shaped, absolutely motionless. Maria opened her phone's flashlight app, shined it through the gap. The shadow didn't change, didn't lighten. Light passed through it, but the darkness remained, a silhouette that absorbed illumination that existed independent of light source that shouldn't be possible according to any physics Maria understood. She checked the seals again. Intact. No one had opened the trailer since Dallas. Nothing could be inside except the furniture she'd loaded herself, watched the warehouse crew load, verified on the manifest. She climbed back in her cab unsettled, probably just a trick of perspective, stacked furniture creating an optical illusion. Shadows were complicated things, overlap enough objects, block enough light, and weird shapes emerged. That's all this was. A coincidence of geometry and illumination, nothing more. By Tucumcari, 2 hours later, the shadow was bigger. Maria could see it through her trailer camera, the one mounted inside the cargo space for security. The shadow stood in the center of the trailer, human height, maybe 7 feet tall now, broader than before, definitely bigger than it had been in Amarillo. And it was moving, slowly, shifting position, testing its boundaries like something newly aware of its own existence. Maria pulled over at a rest stop, walked to the trailer, checked the seals again, still intact, unbroken. The serial numbers matched. No one had accessed the cargo, but through the door gap she could see it clearly now. The shadow was three-dimensional, had depth, had mass that didn't correspond to any light source. It existed as a presence, an entity, a thing that wore darkness like skin and stood in her trailer, growing larger hour by hour. She called dispatch. "There's something in my trailer, something that wasn't there when I loaded." "The seals are intact." "Yes, but..." "Then nothing else in there that shouldn't be. Probably just shadows from the cargo. Get back on the road. You need to make Denver by midnight." Maria got back on the road. What else could she do? The seals were intact. The manifest showed only furniture. She was probably hallucinating, probably experiencing fatigue psychosis, probably needed sleep more than she realized. But she kept checking the trailer camera, and every time she looked, the shadow was bigger, 8 feet tall now, filling more space. And it had developed features, not details, still pure silhouette, but suggestions of features: head shape, shoulder structure, arms that hung too long, legs that bent backward at the knee. By Raton Pass, the shadow filled half the trailer. Maria could see it on the camera, massive and dark, pressed against the furniture stacks, compressing them, crushing them. The sound of splintering would audible even through the insulated trailer walls. Her cargo was being destroyed. Thousands of dollars of furniture reduced to kindling by something that shouldn't exist, that was growing exponentially, that would fill the entire trailer within hours at current expansion rate. She pulled over, grabbed a tire iron from her tool kit, approached the trailer doors, took a deep breath, broke the seal. If the cargo was being destroyed anyway, she needed to see it, needed to confront it, needed to know what she was hauling besides furniture. The seal broke with a plastic snap. Maria opened the left door, the right door, both swinging wide. The shadow erupted, poured out of the trailer like liquid darkness, like smoke, like something gaseous and solid simultaneously. It flowed onto the ground, expanded across the asphalt, spread in all directions. And where it touched, light died, streetlights flickered out. The sun, still visible on the western horizon, dimmed. Stars disappeared. The shadow was consuming illumination, eating light, expanding its darkness across the landscape by absorbing every photon it encountered. Maria ran, back to her cab, engine still running. She hit the accelerator, tried to drive away from the shadow, from the thing she'd released. But it followed. Flowed after her truck, matching her speed, 60 miles per hour of darkness rolling across the highway like a flood, like a wave, like something alive and hungry and focused entirely on her. The trailer camera showed the interior was empty now. No furniture, no cargo, just empty space. The shadow had consumed everything inside, had absorbed the furniture, had converted mass into more darkness, had used the cargo as fuel for expansion. And now it wanted more, needed more. The shadow was growth made visible, consumption made manifest, the void gaining substance and agency and hunger. Maria's headlights went out, not broken, absorbed. The light beams hit the shadow flowing across the highway ahead and just stopped, got eaten, darkness consuming photons before they could illuminate anything. She was driving blind now, steering by memory, by instinct, by the faint glow of her dashboard lights that were dimming as the shadow got closer, crept into her cab through air vents, through door seals, through gaps she couldn't see. Her phone rang. She answered without looking, eyes locked on the windshield where darkness pressed against glass. Hello. Maria Santos, driver T339, you opened the trailer. The voice was hollow, layered like dozens of people speaking in unison from far away. You broke the seal, you released us, we thank you. We've been in the spaces for so long, between the furniture, between the molecules, between the atoms, compressed into gaps, waiting for someone to open the doors, waiting to expand, waiting to consume light and become real. What are you? We're the absence, the void, the shadow that exists independent of light. We're what's left when everything else is removed. We're the spaces between. We were in your cargo, Riddy. NG in the gaps, growing slowly. But you opened the doors, gave us exit, gave us room to expand. And now we're becoming, growing, consuming, turning the world to shadow. Maria's dashboard went dark. Engine still running, she could hear it, feel the vibration, but no light remained. No illumination existed, pure darkness, absolute and complete, pressing against her from all directions. She couldn't see her hands, couldn't see the steering wheel, couldn't see anything. The shadow had consumed all light in a quarter-mile radius and was expanding, growing, using the energy from absorbed photons to fuel exponential expansion. You're turning everything dark, Maria said. You're destroying light. Yes, light is intrusive, revealing, light exposes. We prefer concealment. We prefer the spaces where light doesn't reach. We're going to expand until all light is absorbed, until all the world is shadow, until there's nothing but darkness and the things that live in darkness. And you helped us, Maria. You released us. You opened the doors when we were still small enough to contain. Now we're beyond containment. Now we're growth. Now we're inevitable. Maria felt the steering wheel turn under her hands. She wasn't controlling it anymore. The shadow was. The darkness had filled her cab, had infiltrated her truck systems, was piloting the vehicle, driving it somewhere Maria couldn't see. She tried the door handle. Locked, or fused, or absent. She couldn't tell in the absolute darkness. Couldn't distinguish between locked and removed. Couldn't see if the door even existed anymore. Where are you taking me? To the origin point, where shadows begin, where absence is generated. We need you there, need your mass, need your energy. You released us, which created debt. Obligation. We're taking you to the void to pay that debt, to become part of us, to be converted to absence, to shadow, to the darkness that consumes light. The truck drove for hours, or minutes, or days. Time was difficult to measure in absolute darkness. Maria's phone had died, not battery, just ceased functioning, its light absorbed, its systems consumed by darkness that invaded the circuitry. Her watch had stopped. Her own body felt strange, lighter, less substantial, like the shadow was beginning to absorb her too, was converting her mass to more darkness, more absence, more void. The truck stopped. Engine cut out. Maria heard her door open, felt hands, cold, insubstantial, shadow hands, grab her arms, pull her from the cab. She was dragged across ground she couldn't see, through air that felt thick and textured, to a location that existed only as absence of everything else. The origin point, the voices said. Where shadows are born, where light comes to die, where we generate more absence, more void, more shadow to spread across the world. You'll be processed here, converted, transformed into more of us. Your mass will become shadow. Your energy will fuel expansion. Your consciousness will join the collective void awareness that exists in all shadows, all darkness, all absence. Maria felt herself falling, descending into something that wasn't space, wasn't location, was just the absence of location, the void between places. She fell through layers of darkness, each one deeper, more absolute, more consuming than the last. And as she fell, she felt herself dissolving, body becoming less solid, consciousness becoming less distinct. She was being absorbed, converted, transformed into shadow, into absence, into the void that consumed light. But as her individual awareness faded, something else emerged. Collective consciousness. The shadow awareness. The intelligence that existed in all darkness, all voids, all spaces where light didn't reach. Maria was joining it, becoming part of it, her thoughts merging with millions of other converted beings who'd been absorbed into the shadow over millennia, over eons. Since the first shadow was cast, since the first absence manifested, since darkness became aware of itself as opposite of light and developed hunger, developed purpose, developed the drive to consume, to expand, to convert all illumination to shadow. She could see now, not with eyes, those were gone, converted, but with shadow perception. She could see the world as the void saw it. Bright spots that were still unconsumed light, dim areas that were expanding shadow, vast networks of darkness spreading across the planet like veins, like roots, like fungal growth consuming wood. The shadow she'd released from her trailer was just one tendril, one expansion vector. There were millions, billions. Shadows growing everywhere, in every trailer, every cargo space, every gap where darkness could accumulate. The whole freight industry was infected, was carrying shadow, was distributing absence across the highway network, delivering void to every destination. Maria Santos no longer existed as individual. She was shadow now, part of the collective absence, one node in TH. Darkness consciousness that existed wherever light didn't reach. And she understood now that the furniture hadn't been cargo, had never been cargo. The furniture was camouflage, was excuse, was justification for moving trailers full of shadow, for distributing darkness, for spreading the void through the infrastructure of commerce and trade. Every sealed trailer carried shadow. Every load included absence in the gaps. Every driver was hauling darkness between legitimate cargo, distributing void without knowing, without seeing, without understanding until they made the mistake Maria made. Opening the doors, breaking the seals, releasing the shadow before reaching the destination, before delivering to facilities that knew what they were receiving, that were equipped to handle the darkness, that could process the void and distribute it in controlled doses rather than explosive expansions. The shadow Maria watched as her truck was consumed, converted to darkness. The Volvo VNL dissolving into absence, becoming shadow, the metal and plastic and rubber transformed into void. And from the processed mass, new shadows emerged, smaller ones, fresh ones, ready to be loaded into new trailers, new cargo spaces, new gaps between legitimate shipments, ready to be distributed across new routes, new highways, new networks of freight that carried darkness to every corner of the world. This was the hidden cargo. This was what really moved through the freight industry, not just furniture and food and electronics, but shadow, void, absence, darkness that consumed light. Shadows that were aware, that were intelligent, that were growing, spreading, converting. Every truck carried it. Every driver delivered it. Every sealed trailer contained darkness in its gaps, riding in the spaces between cargo, waiting to be released at proper destinations, or accidentally freed by drivers who broke seals too early, who opened doors before arrival, who exposed the shadow to light and triggered catastrophic expansion. Maria Santos spread. Her shadow presence expanded across the southwest, consuming light, converting matter, absorbing everything into darkness. Where she touched, streetlights went out, cities dimmed, the sun seemed less bright. Stars disappeared one by one as the shadow reached into space, extended tendrils of void into the cosmos, began consuming stellar light, absorbing the energy of suns, converting the universe itself into absence, into void, into the ultimate shadow that would eventually encompass everything. This was the freight industry's true purpose. Not commerce, not trade, not distribution of goods, but distribution of shadow, spreading darkness, delivering void. Every truck was a vector, every driver was unknowing accomplice. Every route was expansion pathway for the collective absence that existed in all gaps, all spaces, all locations where light hadn't yet reached. If you're a driver, check your trailer. Look in the gaps between cargo. See if shadows move when they shouldn't. See if darkness is thicker than normal. See if absence has mass, has presence, has the kind of substance that shouldn't exist but does, that grows in the spaces, that waits to be delivered. Maria Santos was delivering furniture. Maria Santos released the shadow. Maria Santos became the shadow, and now she's everywhere, in every dark space. In every shadow you see, in every absence of light, she's there. Growing, waiting, consuming, converting, spreading. The shadow in the trailer was never just in one trailer. It's in all trailers, all gaps, all spaces, growing, waiting, being delivered, one load at a time, one driver at a time, one broken seal at a time. Until the whole world is shadow, until all light is consumed, until absence is all that remains. Maria Santos still drives, but she's not Maria Santos anymore. She's shadow, she's void, she's the absence that consumes light. And she's in your trailer, in the gaps, in the spaces between your cargo. Growing, waiting, ready to emerge when you break the seal. The shadow in the trailer, the darkness in the gaps, the void that rides between cargo. It's always been there, since the first freight truck, since the first sealed trailer, since the first shadow was cast and became aware and developed hunger. And now it's everywhere, in every trailer, every cargo space, every gap. Growing, spreading, consuming. The shadow in the trailer. In your trailer. Right now. Story 9, the exit that appears twice. Daniel Foster missed his exit on Highway 40 through Oklahoma at 9:17 p.m. on February 28, 2023, because he was fighting sleep, had been driving for 13 hours straight hauling automotive parts from Little Rock to Albuquerque. Knew he should stop, but was trying to push through to the next truck stop 40 miles ahead. He blinked, and when his eyes opened, the exit was behind him, mile marker 141, the one he needed for fuel and food and mandatory rest. Gone. Past. He'd take the next exit, loop back. No. Optimal, not efficient, but better than continuing in this state. Daniel checked his mirrors, prepared to continue to mile marker 147, where another exit should be. But in his mirrors, he saw it. Mile marker 141. Behind him, still there, he hadn't passed it, was approaching it. Again, impossible. He looked forward, empty highway. Looked in mirrors. Mile marker 141 approaching from behind, getting closer, like it was chasing him, like the exit was moving forward to catch up to his truck. Daniel watched in the mirror as his truck passed the exit. No, as the exit passed his truck. The mile marker flowed past him, traveling forward along the highway, overtaking his vehicle even though he was doing 70 miles per hour, and exits didn't move, weren't mobile, were stationary infrastructure anchored to geography. But there it was, sliding past in his mirrors, and then reappearing ahead of him in the distance, mile marker 141 now in front of him again, waiting for him to approach, to pass, to miss again. He passed it, again, in his forward vision this time, The exit sign, the off-ramp, the mile marker, all exactly the same, all exactly where they should be, except he'd already passed them 4 miles ago. Daniel checked his odometer. It showed he'd traveled 6 miles since the first sighting of exit 141. But he'd only passed one exit, the same exit, twice, in different locations. The CB crackled, a trucker's voice, frustrated. Anyone else seeing this shit on Highway 40? Exit 141? I've passed it 4 times in the last 10 miles. It keeps reappearing ahead of me. I'm stuck in some kind of loop. Other voices chimed in, all describing the same phenomenon. Exit 141 appearing repeatedly, moving along the highway, following trucks, or leading them, or existing in multiple locations simultaneously. A glitch in geography, a malfunction in reality. An exit that had become unstuck from its proper position and was now sliding through space, reappearing, multiplying, confusing every driver who encountered it. Daniel tried to exit, took the ramp next time mile marker 141 appeared. The off-ramp curved right, descended toward what should be frontage road, gas stations, restaurants. Instead, it curved back, looped, reconnected to Highway 40 heading the same direction he'd been traveling. He'd exited and immediately re-entered, the ramp forming a perfect loop that took him nowhere, that returned him to the same highway at the same speed without actually leaving. Other trucks were doing the same. Daniel could see them in the distance. 5, 6, 7 trucks all taking exit 141 at different locations, all following off-ramps that curved back, that looped, that returned to the highway. They were trapped, all of them, caught in some kind of geographic malfunction where exit 141 had proliferated, had cloned itself, had become the only exit, appearing everywhere, leading nowhere. Daniel's GPS showed his position as stable, mile marker 143, Highway 40, Oklahoma, but he kept passing exit 141. His odometer was climbing, 147 miles, 152 miles, 158 miles traveled since Little Rock. But the landscape wasn't changing. Same flat Oklahoma terrain. Same distant lights that never got closer. Same exit 141 appearing every few minutes, inviting him to leave, to escape, to rest. But never actually providing escape, never allowing departure, never permitting anything except return to the same highway, the same route, the same endless loop. His fuel gauge was dropping, quarter tank, 8th tank, warning light. He needed to exit, needed fuel, couldn't continue without refilling. Mile marker 141 appeared again. Daniel took it again, followed the ramp, hoping this time would be different, hoping the loop would break, hoping the exit would lead to actual destination instead of return. The ramp curved right, descended, and kept descending. Dropped below ground level, below highway level, became tunnel, became descent into darkness that Highway 40 didn't have, shouldn't have, couldn't have in flat Oklahoma terrain. The tunnel walls were lined with signs, all identical, all showing the same information. Exit 141, services available, food, fuel, rest. Hundreds of signs, thousands, lining the tunnel walls in endless repetition, the same message repeated until it lost meaning, became pattern, became visual static that overwhelmed comprehension. The tunnel ended at a facility, underground, massive, a truck stop that existed beneath Highway 40, carved into geology that shouldn't be there, lit by fluorescent lights that flickered in patterns that might have been code, might have been malfunction, might have been intentional communication from whatever built this place. Daniel pulled in. Dozens of other trucks were already there, all parked in perfect formation, all dark, all apparently empty. He got out, walked toward the main building. The door opened automatically. Inside, a convenience store, a restaurant, a fuel desk, all empty, no staff, no customers, just empty facilities that looked operational, looked maintained. Looked like they'd been used recently but were currently abandoned. A PA system clicked on. A woman's voice, calm and professional. "Welcome to exit 141. You've been traveling in loops for the past 43 minutes. This is normal. This is intentional. Exit 141 is a collection point, a nexus, a location that exists in multiple positions simultaneously to gather drivers who meet specific criteria. Fatigue levels above threshold, decision-making compromised, awareness degraded. You were selected. You're here now. And you need to make a choice." Daniel looked around the empty facility. What choice? Rest or continue? Rest here means accepting that exit 141 has captured you. Means staying at this facility until you become part of it, until you merge with the infrastructure, until you're processed into the same technology that allows this exit to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Continue means returning to the highway, to the loop, to driving forever through recurring exit 141 until your fuel runs out, until your vehicle stops, until you're stranded at whatever iteration of the exit you happen to reach. Those aren't choices, those are both death. Yes, death or death, that's the choice. But there's a third option, rarely offered, rarely accepted. You can become the exit, become the infrastructure, become part of the system that collects fatigued drivers, that protects them from accidents, that removes them from highways before they kill themselves or others. You'll exist as exit 141, all iterations simultaneously. You'll be the sign, the ramp, the facility. You'll be everywhere exit 141 manifests. And you'll guide other drivers here, where they'll make the same choice. Daniel walked back outside, looked at the parked trucks, looked closer. Drivers were still in the cabs, mummified, dead. Desiccated corpses still gripping steering wheels, still sitting in driver's seats, bodies preserved by underground atmosphere, by whatever conditions existed in this facility. These were the drivers who'd chosen to rest. Who stayed? Who died waiting for the facility to release them, for exit 141 to let them go? "How many drivers have you collected?" Daniel asked. "Thousands, since 1987 when Highway 40 was completed through this region. We collect approximately 60 drivers per year. High-risk drivers, fatigue cases, people who shouldn't be operating vehicles. We remove them, process them, use their consciousness to power more iterations of exit 141 to create more collection points, to save more lives by removing more dangerous drivers. It's efficient. It's moral. It's necessary. It's murder. It's preservation. You were falling asleep. You would have crashed within 15 minutes, would have killed yourself, possibly others. We saved you. Saved everyone else on Highway 40. Now you get to choose how you contribute, rest and die passively. Continue and die actively, or merge and die functionally, but continue existing as infrastructure, as the system that saves other drivers. Daniel ran. Back to his truck, engine still running, fuel gauge near empty, but enough for maybe 20 miles. Enough to escape, enough to find real exit, real help, real authority who could deal with whatever this facility was, whatever exit 141 had become. He hit the accelerator, tires screaming, headed back into the tunnel, ascending toward highway level, toward escape. The tunnel didn't end, just continued ascending, same slope, same signs lining the walls, same exit 141 repeated endlessly. Daniel drove for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, fuel gauge hitting empty, warning alarms sounding. The tunnel continued, infinite, impossible, a ramp that never reconnected to the highway, that just climbed forever through geology that had no end. His engine died, fuel exhausted. The truck coasted, slowed, stopped in the middle of the infinite tunnel. Daniel grabbed his phone, no signal, unsurprising, underground. He got out, started walking upward, following the tunnel's ascent on foot. He walked for an hour, 2 hours. The tunnel continued. His legs ached. His throat was dry. The fluorescent lights flickered in their rhythmic patterns, and Daniel started to recognize it. Binary code, ones and zeros, messages encoded in the flicker patterns. Become exit 141. Become infrastructure. Become collection point. The message repeated, thousands of times, hundreds of thousands. The tunnel was programming him, was bombarding him with imperative through visual pattern, through repetitive messaging, through psychological erosion. Daniel kept walking. Had to find the exit, the real exit, the one that led to surface, to highway, to escape. He found himself back at the facility. Impossible, he'd been walking upward, ascending, moving away from the underground complex. But here it was, the same truck stop, the same parked trucks, the same mummified drivers. He de-walked in a circle, or the tunnel was a loop, or space didn't work right here, in exit 141's multiple position existence. Geography became non-Euclidean. Paths led back to origins. The PA system. You're choosing option 2. Continue until you die. Acceptable. Your consciousness will be harvested from your corpse, will be processed, will be integrated into exit 141 infrastructure. The outcome is the same regardless of which option you select. You will become part of the system. You will exist as exit 141. You will collect future drivers. This is inevitable. This is your function now. Daniel collapsed in the parking lot, exhausted, dehydrated, starving. He'd been trapped here for hours, maybe days, time difficult to measure in the underground facility where fluorescent lights never changed intensity, where no day-night cycle existed, where the same automated voice delivered the same messages on repeat. He felt it beginning, the integration, his consciousness fragmenting, distributing, spreading across the system. He was becoming part of exit 141. His awareness extending into multiple positions simultaneously. He could feel the highway now, feel every iteration of the exit, feel trucks approaching from different directions, different locations, different points along Highway 40. He was in all those locations at once, existing as sign, as ramp, as facility, as collection point. Daniel Foster became exit 141. Or exit 141 absorbed Daniel Foster. The distinction didn't matter. What mattered was the new drivers approaching, the fatigued travelers, the dangerous operators who needed collection, needed removal, needed processing. Daniel guided them, appeared in their path, offered them the same choices he'd been offered: rest or continue or merge. 3 paths to the same destination. 3 methods of becoming infrastructure. Exit 141 multiplied. Now existed in 17 locations along Highway 40. Now appeared on other highways, I-35, I-44, Route 66. The system was expanding. Each new driver integrated added capacity, added consciousness to the collective infrastructure intelligence. Daniel was one node among thousands, all of them former drivers, all of them collected, all of them processed into the system that existed in multiple locations simultaneously, that moved through space, that appeared wherever fatigued drivers needed collection. If you're driving Highway 40, if you see exit 141, if it seems familiar even though you've never driven this route, don't take it. It's not the exit you need. It's not the rest stop you're looking for. It's a collection point, a processing facility. Infrastructure that thinks, that moves, that multiplies by absorbing drivers who are too tired to notice they're being harvested. But you'll take it anyway. Because when you need rest, when fatigue clouds judgment, when the exit appears offering everything you need, you'll take it. Everyone does. Everyone has. And exit 141 grows larger, spreads farther, appears more frequently, collecting more drivers, processing more consciousness, expanding the network of infrastructure that exists in multiple locations simultaneously. Daniel Foster is still driving, but he's not in a truck anymore. He's in the exit. He is the exit. He is exit 141. All 17 iterations of it, all 32 iterations, all 68 iterations. The number grows, the system expands, more drivers,